Episode number 526, Becoming a Wave King Ere. Kane's eyes narrowed as he glanced at the apple, and a sharp light appeared in his eyes as he sent it into his space ring. It would serve as a great source of vitality in case he was wounded, and in the meantime, he could use it to study the law of blood.
There isn't time to waste, so you should start. You need to reach at least the third level of the technique in order to use its power to break through to the Wave King rank and obtain the upgrade in Astral Blood.
Lord Kabuto's solemn voice conveyed the importance he placed on Kane's cultivation. He then made the entire room glow as extremely pure life wave and scorching sunlight energy flooded the ceiling. Kane's face grew stern as he nodded to the old man. Lord Kabuto had gone through a great ordeal to grant him this bloodline, and it would be irresponsible not to utilize it properly. He took a deep breath and adopted a meditative position on the ground, sending his ego wave into the starry gem, letting all the knowledge and insight of the person who created the technique flood his mind and soul. Lord Kabuto focused on Kane, flooding the room with energy and using his power to purify it further, surpassing the energy level produced by a high-quality wave crystal and just a little weaker than supreme wave crystals. The purity of his bloodline could not be higher, and his foundation is flawless. Yet, the solar blaze path is extremely complicated as it focuses on the connection with astral energy. We should make it in time before the opening of the realm. Those thoughts just crossed Lord Kabuto's mind when his eyes widened as he felt a sense of heat emerging from Kane's body. Awakening his body's innate connection with heat and yang, that's the first level of the solar blaze path, the ignition stage.
The old man realized in pure shock as he saw that Kane had already reached the first level before even finishing the illusion enlightenment in the starry gem.
Yes.
Lord Kabuto couldn't help but shout, seeing the level of affinity Kane showed with the Solis clan bloodline. It was clear the young man was keen in both mind and soul to the powers of the Sun Star. A radiant smile appeared on the old man's face as he observed how, by the end of the day, solar energy began to flood Kane's flesh and blood, improving the internal heat of his body and the state of his already impressive energy pool. More and more solar energy began to flood Kane's body, pushing him further to the limit of the Wave Champion rank. Fortunately, he only needed to focus on his training as the room had more life wave and sunlight energy than his body could consume in weeks. Lord Kabuto kept increasing the purity of the energies inside the room to their peak. As a week was about to pass since the start of the training, his eyes narrowed when he saw all of Kane's sunlight energy begin to gather in his rebirth heart. The energy grew denser until it took a liquid state, forming a core that emanated soaring heat. Suddenly, Kane opened his mouth and began to swallow copious amounts of sunlight energy and life wave, channeling it all into the liquid core inside his rebirth heart. Lord Kabuto observed closely, ensuring the room was saturated with solar energy and everything else the young man might need. Kane continued consuming the room's energy like a ravenous beast, using it all to solidify the scorching core inside his rebirth heart. Once he finally achieved it, his astral wave burst with power.
Boom! Kane had formed his blazing core, which triggered a chain reaction in his body, inducing the qualitative and quantitative evolution of his astral wave. Simultaneously, it initiated the transformation of his blood cells, turning them into tiny energy pools by altering the mitochondria, the cell's energy core. Lord Kabuto ensured the energy in the room remained at an optimal level, smiling as he watched Kane's body grow increasingly powerful. The burst of astral wave emerging from Kane's body began to change, gaining a golden color along with the properties of heat and yang. Now that Kane had formed the blazing core, it would act as the core of his astral wave, allowing him the ability to manipulate internal heat for explosive bursts of speed and power and infuse sunlight force into his energy pool. Kane's golden eyes began to glow as his astral wave burst with more and more power, this time emitting a scorching golden light. Every second that passed, Kane's body improved, and the young man ensured he used the breakthrough to push the evolution of his blood cells forward as much as he could. Each time one changed, he could feel his body growing stronger. The improvement of a single cell was infinitesimal, but with trillions of blood cells coursing through his veins, the cumulative improvement was astronomical. Finally, after 6 hours, Kane's burst of energy began to calm down, and his cultivation base stabilized. There was an exhausted expression on his face, as he had used every second of the evolution to improve his constitution, but this did not diminish the smile on his face. He clenched his fists, feeling the immense power coursing through his veins and every single muscle fiber. Cain allowed himself a few minutes to feel his body's overwhelming power, but did not lose focus. He began to take deep breaths as he regulated his breathing and energy for nearly 10 hours. Lord Kabuto was surprised to see the improvement in Cain, and just as he wondered what the Godslayer human intended to do next, he saw how the density of space around him began to increase to the point that it generated a shift in the gravitational force. Stay connected via Freewebnovel. The old man observed how the core of that gravitational force was concentrated in Cain's evolution core. The blood energy reinforced it, ensuring no wound appeared in the sacred organ. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 527, Becoming a Wave King, EI. A sharp light appeared in the eyes of Lord Kabuto as he observed the extreme density of Cain's energy pool, which was already partially crystallized, signaling the impressive foundation of the young man. Immediately, the old man once again flooded the room with highly pure life wave, removing the sunlight energy, as Cain would only need pure life wave to perform his breakthrough in the essence evolution path. Experience more content on Freewebnov. After 3 days, Cain opened his eyes again, and an unwavering light appeared in them as he intensified the density of space to an even more powerful degree, setting ablaze every single iota of blood energy essence inside his body. More and more pressure was applied to the essence wave inside Cain's evolution core as he kept increasing the quantity of his energy pool. The essence wave wanted to expand but could not, and its mass kept growing. Lord Kabuto watched in awe as the entire room was soaked in a red fog, and space began to distort. Cain's evolution to the wave king rank triggered a reaction from the primary laws of the Crimson Void cultivation technique. By the phenomenon's intensity, it was clear that the foundation of the young man in the essence evolution path was no weaker than the astral rebirth path.
Boom.
After 10 hours, a boom echoed from inside Cain's body, more precisely from inside his evolution core, as the cyclone of essence wave collapsed, leaving only a sky blue core the size of a chicken's egg. His essence star is so big, Lord Kabuto thought to himself, amazed as he perceived the size of the essence star inside Cain's evolution core. Essence star was the name of the unique structure that an essence cultivator would generate inside their evolution core after evolving to the wave king rank. The process was similar to the transformation that a star would experience upon its collapse and rebirth as a dwarf star or neutron star. The mass remained the same, but the volume would decrease, generating a massive burst in gravitational force. The essence wave inside the evolution core would experience a similar process as it became an essence star. Usually, when a person broke through to the wave king rank, their essence star would be the size of an apple seed, and only divine geniuses would obtain an essence star the size of a small chestnut, yet Cain's was nearly 3 times larger.
Boom.
Soon, a second explosion echoed inside Cain's body. The essence star generated a vortex that devoured the energy in the surroundings like a ravenous beast. Soon, Cain's evolution core was flooded with essence wave again, and so were his meridians, while the essence star slowly began to grow. Cain finally took a moment to relax as he felt the energy of his essence wave and smiled as his essence star devoured the surrounding energy continuously without him having to do anything. From now on, his cultivation speed and energy regeneration will be exponentially faster. System, scan me. Cain eagerly commanded the Absolute Life Form system to scan him. Scanning vessel, scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer humankind. Path of power, Astral Rebirth Early Wave King, Essence Evolution Early Wave King. Lineage, Soli's lineage, maximum purity. Wave talent, peak tier 9, peak tier 9. Stats. Strength, 79.4, 95.1. Agility, 45.2, 56.2. Vitality, 91.2, 112.2. Astral wave, 57.9, 69.2. Essence wave, 61.2, 76.4. Blood energy, astral, 112.2, 134.3. Blood energy essence, 88.4, 106.4. Astral blood saturation, 40% completion. Main law mastery, law of blood, deep law fragmentation. Secondary law mastery, law of space, extreme basic understanding. Note, wave virus inside the vessel enhanced wave talent by 28.1%. Kane was delighted with his current stats. His wave talent had evolved again, which would greatly aid his cultivation, but it remained at Tier 9 despite improvements brought by the wave virus. It made sense, as there were no records of a Tier 10 wave talent, and Kane might be the first in Ether to achieve it. Even without reinforcement, his physical body was as strong as someone at the limit of the Wave King rank, and his astral blood saturation had already reached 40%. Just a bit more, and he would be able to use the astral blood ability, igniting his blood cells to enhance his physical offensive and defensive capabilities exponentially. Regarding his essence evolution path, he smiled upon seeing his law of blood evolve to deep law fragmentation. While his law of space remained at basic understanding, he sensed he was close to the next stage. This step could take weeks or months, but he was prepared.
How do you feel?
Lord Kabuto inquired with curiosity, unable to gauge the extent of Kane's growth.
I am great. Everything went smoothly, but I will remain in meditation for the next week to stabilize my cultivation base and perform the next level of my body refinement technique. Oh, about that. We have several astral path body refinement techniques you could use. Don't you want to change it?
Lord Kabuto offered. Kane appreciated Lord Kabuto's words, but softly shook his head.
I have the biomental Herculean technique of the Blood Sea. It's easy for me to train, and the next level will give me a body as strong as a platinum artifact. Oh, the Blood Sea, I have heard of them. Since the technique will give such massive improvement to your body, then indeed it will be better if you stick with it. Since I have nothing else to do, I will leave you. You are now my foster son and the son avatar of the Solis clan, so I will commence the ceremony. Don't worry, keep training, and I will call you when everything is ready.
Kane showed a small smile as he clasped his hand and performed a bow to Lord Kabuto.
I will be ready when you call me, foster father. Great, great.
Lord Kabuto smiled, pleased with Kane's attitude, and left the young man alone as he exited the room. Kane knew that turmoil might spread across the Solis clan, but wasn't worried. He waved his hand, summoning a massive cauldron and filling it with platinum-level metals before starting a flame to melt them. As he waited, he calmly circulated his astral wave and essence wave through his meridians, adjusting them to their new power and potency. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 528, The Soul King. As Kane's soul was full of joy at his newfound power, allowing his life force to evolve even higher and gaining over 1,000 years of longevity. A person within the sacred home of another of the 10 great bloodlines was practically spouting blood and cursing his name.
Damn human insect.
An old man with a decrepit appearance shouted as rage and anger overwhelmed his heart. His eyes were sunken, and a powerful death aura soaked his body, making it clear just how weak his life force was. Despite his weakened state, the old man still possessed tremendous power and energy in his body since he was a peak apotheosis master, and the Kraken bloodline ran through his veins. This man's name was Nakuo, Natuo's father and high elder of the Kraken clan. The old man could not suppress the rage as he remembered receiving the news that his bastard son, who was supposed to return home, had been slain by a human. When he found out, Nakuo's first impulse was to find the human and break every bone in his body before crushing his brain, but he immediately discarded that idea. If that person could kill Natuo, who was stronger than him, what could an old man with a foot in the grave do? Of course, not being able to fight Kane directly didn't mean Nakuo would give up, and using the influence he amassed over thousands of years, he obtained the help of a divine ascension master. Nakuo expected that Marcellus' power would be enough to seal Kane's fate. Yet, not only did the humans survive, but the old Deus Behemoth heard there would be a ceremony in the Godslayer human's honor, as this one would become the foster son of the patriarch of the Solis clan and gain the title of Sun Avatar.
Lord Norquo, you should not get so angry. At your age, distress and anger will only put you one step closer to the grave.
Norquo's eyes narrowed as he heard those words that seemed to carry concern, yet hid malicious mockery. The fact that someone managed to intrude into his cultivation room located at the car of the Kraken clan's sacred home was shocking, but the old man knew that very few things could stop this person. The one who appeared in the room was a man with white hair, crystal blue eyes, pointy ears, horns on his head, draconic blue scales on his limbs, and a long blue tail.
Soul King.
If Cain were to hear the words coming from Norquo's mouth, he would be beyond shocked at the realization that one of the Dark Kings controlling the organization was on this side of the endless ocean. The Soul King noticed the dread and caution in Norquo's eyes, but a smile appeared on his face as he saw that the most predominant emotion in the old man's soul was greed.
Lord Norquo, your son was supposed to be here for the soul transfer, yet I detect no direct relative of you with an apotheosis realm cultivation in this place.
Norquo narrowed his eyes as he heard the words from the Soul King. He was sure that for someone of this man's power, finding out about Natuo's death would not be complicated. For a moment, Norquo thought the Soul King was mocking him, but there was a chance the man might genuinely not know. In the end, Norquo needed to stay on the good side of the Soul King, so he took a deep breath, controlling his rage before speaking.
My son was killed almost 2 months ago by a Godslayer human. From what I have heard of that brat, the organization wants him dead, yet he refuses to die like a cockroach.
The mocking and self-complacent smile of the Soul King faded as he heard those words, and a sharp light appeared in his eyes as he focused on the computer ring for nearly a minute before a flash of killing intent appeared in his eyes.
Cain Lorifer, so he survived.
Pure coldness flooded the Soul King's eyes as he uttered those words, and he then turned in the direction of the Solis clan's sacred home.
Will you go and kill him?
Norquo saw the killing intent in the Soul King's eyes, and a malicious smile appeared as he pictured the Dark King going to the Solis clan's sacred home to kill Cain and, in the process, butcher many more.
HMPH.
The Soul King only sneered at Norquo's words and did not offer any explanation to the man before a meaningful light appeared in his eyes.
You have lost your son with a cultivation at the apotheosis realm, and you have no vessel capable of enduring the pressure of your soul, so a soul transfer is no longer possible. Secure a spot for yourself for the next astral bloodline realm, and I will help you obtain another 1,000 years of lifespan. Fail, and you will no longer be useful to us.
Not bothering to utter another word, the Soul King turned around and vanished from the room, leaving Norquo alone. Shock appeared in the old man's eyes as he heard that nearly impossible request. However, a new wave of rage helped him regain focus.
Damn it.
Find exclusive stories on Freeweb Novel. Norquo shouted, releasing all the pent-up frustration in his heart before focusing on his computer ring and beginning to communicate with everyone in the Kraken clan who owed him a favor. The Soul King appeared hundreds of kilometers away from the Kraken clan's sacred home and soon descended into a giant swamp. His presence grew more and more weak until suddenly, his figure began to change, becoming nothing more than a small pebble that sank to the bottom of the dirty waters. Billions of kilometers away from that dirty swamp, at a distance so far that even moving at the speed of light would take nearly half an hour, there was a figure inside a dark tower. He was a man with white hair, crystal blue eyes, pointy ears, horns on his head, draconic blue scales on his limbs, and a long blue tail. Of course, this person was none other than the Soul King. However, unlike the one that became a small rock and was now inside a dirty swamp, his aura was hundreds of times more potent, and his eyes glowed with a powerful soul force that could break the minds of weaker life forms. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 529, War of Hell I. The Soul King had just opened his eyes when he heard a massive blast. It was so full of power and destructive that one might think it could only be produced by the crash of a giant meteorite falling into a planet. His eyes grew cold as he teleported, soon appearing atop the tower. Essence wave coalesced around his eyes as he looked into the sky and located the reason behind the explosion. Space shattered as two men clashed hundreds of thousands of kilometers above the ground level. One resembled a young man with short red hair and starry eyes. Despite his medium build, every attack he fired seemed to bring a celestial body, as if his fists were plucking the stars from ether's heaven. The other was more mature, with a larger body covered in black lightning that seemed to destroy the sky. Thick arcs of black lightning, full of destruction and gravitational power, coursing around his body.
Void King. Collapsing Lightning Duke.
The duo shouted, full of killing intent, as a star punch and a fist covered in black lightning collided, generating another explosion that could surpass the destructive might of HBOMBS. If this fight were to occur in the old world, it would sunder continents and set the atmosphere on fire. Find your adventure at Freeweb Novel. Luckily, this cataclysmic fight happened in a world where the laws, space, and gravity could endure such overwhelming power. The Void King and the Collapsing Lightning Duke unleash all their power on the highest sky in the Zafiro sector. Despite being one of the northernmost sectors of the Godslayer humankind empire, near the battlefield that divided the Gaia continent and Atlas, the Zafiro sector was a peaceful place since the forces of the Inferno Demon Empire had never managed to rise to safety. Yet now, the flames of war covered every corner of it. The leader of the Godslayer humankind's force defending against the invasion was none other than the strongest of the sector dukes in the north of the empire, the Collapsing Lightning Duke. However, the one leading the invading army was not an Inferno demon, but another human, the stronger of the Dark King of the organization, the Void King. The duo was alone in their fight. While they were at the center of the battlefield, due to their overwhelming power, dozens of fights were happening a few thousand meters before them, and two massive armies covered the ground as humans and Inferno demons clashed without end.
Traitor.
The Collapsing Lightning King shouted with rage and loathing as he flashed toward the Void King, full of killing intent. And the sentiment behind those words was not limited to just one person. Just one human on the side of the Inferno Demon Empire's invading force would be a great shame for the Godslayer humankind race. Yet, the ones on the upper echelon of the Inferno Demon invading Gaia were actually humans. Two streams of darkness were moving across the battlefield, one unleashing the power of the astral rebirth path of power, while the other the power of the essence evolution path of power. Despite not being able to see them, everybody knew that the two streams of darkness were none other than the patriarch of the Egon family, the greatest assassin of the Empire, and the other was the Shadow King, the most enigmatic figure in the underworld. The last of the fights on the highest battlefield were between a man with short black hair and a humanoid covered in blood. The first Collapsing Lightning Pillar's eyes were cold as every wave from his sword sent destructive energy, pushing the Blood King back repeatedly, clearly showing who had the upper hand. Although the Blood King showed great power, the light in his eyes could not burst into flames. Whatever flaw existed on his ego wave affected his battle power, and several deep cuts on his body had already reached the bone. When the Soul King saw the deplorable state of the Blood King, an expression full of rage appeared on his face.
Useless.
Coldness appeared in the Soul King as he saw how the Blood King could barely endure the onslaught of the first Collapsing Lightning Pillar. He flashed into the sky as his eyes focused on the swordsman, and an invisible wave of soul force emerged from them. The first Collapsing Lightning Pillar's eyes narrowed as he felt his instincts warning him of danger, and he pushed the Blood King away. His eyes burst with willpower, and he sundered the space before him. Although it seemed as if he had not attacked anything, the truth was he had just shattered the soul invasion spell that was about to reach him. The Soul King was not surprised to see the first Collapsing Lightning Pillar sundering his invisible spell, and he reached the sky with wings of dark blue fire emerging from his back.
HMPH, go down to a lower battlefield.
The Blood King had just regained control over his body when he saw the Soul King appearing and heard those words. Although he hated the condescending look in this one's eyes, he could only comply and flash down, joining the battlefield that involved normal titans and divine ascension masters. Although the battlefield with divine ascension masters was not as amazing as the one involving the Void King and collapsing Lightning Duke, one could still see several powerful figures such as the Blood Duke, Bloodless One, the second collapsing lightning pillar, and even those who had not reached that cultivation base but whose battle power allowed them to fight in it, such as Zarak Valentine. The first collapsing lightning pillar saw the Blood King flashing down. Although he knew that the Blood King would give the upper hand to the enemy on the Divine Ascension battlefield, the Soul King was not an enemy he could face without complete focus. The Soul King and the first collapsing lightning pillar looked at each other before both made their essence wave and astral wave burst, one unleashing all sorts of fire soul spells and the other hacking them with his sword to diminish the distance. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 530, War of Hell It. While the battles in the sky at the limit of Aether's atmosphere were beyond amazing, the ones taking place on the ground were hundreds of times more bloody. Millions of wave warriors and waste champions clashed with all their power, killing each other while keeping an eye above to avoid becoming collateral damage from the fight of the Wave Kings. The war that began with the Great Cataclysm had not ceased for a single day, and the number of casualties on both sides was incalculable. The destruction had already leveled several sectors, and its flames covered the entire upper side of Gaia, displacing hundreds of millions of people to the collapsing lightning sector, the only place where they could be safe from the grueling war. Typically, a war of this level would only last for a short time, since the Godslayer human empire was not any weaker than the Inferno demon empire, and they had the home advantage. Unfortunately, while the cataclysm affected Gaia and Atlas, the Godslayer human empire's situation was way worse. Your journey continues on Freeweb Novel. The capital constantly battled endless hordes of mutated beasts, while the southern sectors were in turmoil with hundreds of rogue organizations sowing chaos. The Imperial Lightning Fort was strong, but there was a limit to the size of its force. Unfortunately, no matter how much reinforcement the collapsing Lightning Duke requested, none came. Ultimately, the collapsing Lightning Duke was forced to take leadership over this area of the Empire and face the threat with his own hands and the help of people outside the Imperial army. The battle in the sky lasted for nearly 5 hours before the collapsing Lightning Duke and the Void King put distance between them. Both were severely injured with broken bones and cuts that tore through muscles, yet their vitality did not weaken, making evident just how strong their bodies were. After exchanging glances, the collapsing Lightning Duke sent a signal, just as the Void King did, and both forces began to separate, from the true titans in the highest sky to the wave warriors and wave champions on the ground. Although the collapsing Lightning Duke and the Void King could keep fighting in their current condition, the next wound could be the final one, and without them, their armies would fall. That was a bet neither was willing to take. The Godslayer human forces pulled back to the edge of the Zafiro sector. At the same time, the Inferno demon race forces retreated to the Trinity Dark Towers at the center of the sector, which could enhance their power and improve their healing speed. The command center of the Inferno demon invasion force was located on the highest floor of the largest of the Dark Towers. Still, the ones with the highest authority were not members of the Abyssal Clan, Hell Clan, or the enigmatic Nether Clan. The Void King, Blood King, Shadow King, and Soul King sat at an imposing table, with the first one taking the lead. On the side were 10 members of the Inferno demon race, all divine ascension masters, but not any kind, as their power allowed them to gain the title of gods among their race. Many of those gods couldn't help but clench their fists as they saw humans leading the entire force. Although, as with all races, the Inferno demon race valued strength, the way these four behaved made every day a trial for these generals.
General Cassidius, it has become clear that the way to the collapsing lightning sector is blocked,
said the Void King, making a member of the Hell Clan step forward. General Cassidius' body was thin, Yet immense strength was hidden inside it, and the pressure of 1,000,000 mountains seemed to emanate from his evolution car.
Yes, Void King. If we want to move to the center of the Empire, the only plausible path is through the collapsing lightning sector. Yet it seems that our forces cannot overcome our counterparts, and we have unfortunately reached a stalemate. Boom!
A blast echoed across the room as the Blood King slammed the table with rage.
How could the collapsing Lightning Duke and his forces mobilize so fast? We have worked in secrecy for years, yet they marched toward us from the beginning. We barely crossed the demilitarized zone and took over a few sectors before they were in front of us.
The Blood King's eyes were full of rage, but there was something else, a sense of chaos. Usually, one would think the Dark King was just emotional, but it was more than that. His current state of mind was none other than a hot nightmare, which emerged over a year ago when he failed once again against a young man who had not even turned 20. It began small, but the feeling of insecurity in his mind and heart grew stronger by the day to the point that he could barely use the power of his ego wave path of power. That was why the first collapsing lightning pillar had such an easy time against the man and nearly severed his arm during their last fight.
I have already told you, the Imperial Lightning Fort was organized in pursuit of revenge in the name of Cain Lorifer. It was just bad luck that such an event matched the start of the Great Cataclysm and the invasion. No, it cannot be something so simple. I refuse to believe that the collapsing Lightning Duke would have challenged the entire Empire for that brat. It cannot happen.
A sense of madness appeared in the Blood King as he shouted, and it was clear just how much distress the name of Cain Lorifer brought to his mind.
Enough!
The Void King shouted, silencing the Blood King before focusing again on Cassidius.
General Cassidius, since we cannot advance further, you will lead your troops to the adjacent sectors on our flanks. You must destroy all infrastructure and eliminate everybody in your path. We will remain in this Trinity Tower formation, so the forces of the collapsing Lightning Duke cannot push forward.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 531, The Soul King's Plot. When General Cassidius heard that command, his eyes widened, as did those of all other generals from the Inferno demon race.
Void King, the sectors on our flanks have yet to finish evacuating all civilians. There is no real military gain in attacking them, and we will only be causing death to the weak who cannot pose any threat to us.
Even though the Inferno demon race and the Godslayer humankind race were at war, thousands of years of battle had led to the formation of unspoken rules between both sides. Although there were no qualms about killing soldiers on either side, since that was the nature of war and every warrior had accepted such a burden, things were different when it came to civilians. Of course, there were events in which the actions of the Dark races led to the death of many civilians, such as the Gaia invasion, the event in which Cain awakened his ego wave and defeated a wave champion Atrox. However, that event came as a response, since during a military mission from the Godslayer human race, something went wrong, and human spies blew up a civilian city. That triggered the rage of the Atrox Immatus race, who infiltrated several sectors with the help of the Inferno demon race and wreaked havoc. That was why when Zarak fought the Apotheosis master of the Abyssal clan, this one uttered the words,
Every action has a reaction.
Even if it was an enemy race, General Cassidius did not feel good about killing a bunch of children and old people who could not fight back. However, the Void King did not have that problem.
You have your orders, leave.
General Cassidius clenched his fists as he nodded and left with the rest of the generals, leaving the Far Dark Kings alone. Once the Far Dark Kings were alone, the Void King's eyes grew cold as he glanced at the Blood King, making this one tremble.
Soul King, you have news related to Cain Lorifer, right?
When the Blood King heard that, his entire body began to tremble. The reason was that, according to his report, Cain Lorifer had perished inside an alternate dimension trying to escape from him, yet that was a lie. The Blood King was so ashamed and afraid of his failure that he lied to the Void King and made sure that the Azure King and all other members of the Azure royal family would follow his charade, erasing any mention of Cain's lost words and the name of the Scarlet King. In all fairness, the Blood King expected Cain to die from his wounds. After all, the Dark King nearly made the heart of the young man explode and completely crippled his path, yet it seemed he had underestimated him again. The Soul King's eyes were equally cold as he glanced at the Blood King before focusing on the Void King.
Yes, the boy arrived in the Hyperion continent just before the start of the Great Cataclysm. The infamous Scarlet King who terrorized Chronos' underworld was Cain Lorifer. His astral rebirth path of power was crippled, yet he obtained battle power beyond his previous peak using the Essence Evolution path of power. He destroyed dozens of Tier 1 dark factions of Silent World, and then stormed into a battle between Silent World and Blood Path with the help of an Atrox Duke. He severed the arm of a Divine Ascension Master, and killed several late Apotheosis Masters, before hijacking Blood Path's intercontinental teleportation formation and leaving. Right now, his battle power seems to have reached the peak Apotheosis realm, as he killed a divine beast just a few weeks ago on the shore of the Hyperion continent, along with nearly another 1,000,000 wave beasts in less than 12 hours.
The Void King clenched his fists, and a sense of shock appeared in the eyes of the Shadow King as they heard the feats that the young man had managed to achieve on the foreign continents. Clearly, Cain Lorifer was not someone who needed the help of his race to succeed. He was a shining star wherever he went.
Impossible.
The shock in the Blood King's heart was much greater than the others, as what he heard was like a nightmare come true.
You must be wrong. How could that brat start from zero in the Essence Evolution path and reach quasi-divine battle power in less than 2 years? HMPH, of the two, I am not the one that lies. Had you told us the truth, we could have used our forces in the Chronos continent to track down the boy and kill him, yet your lies allowed him to escape. He even used his codename as a taunt, yet we knew nothing due to your cowardice.
The Soul King sneered as he saw the reaction of the Blood King and no longer bothered with this one, turning to the Void King, waiting to see how this one would handle this problem. The Void King remained silent for a moment before focusing on the Soul King.
How feasible would it be to send assassins to take care of him now?
Find your next read at Freewebnot.
I am afraid that he has obtained the favor of the patriarch of the Zagninis clan, and the Solis clan's patriarch just named him his foster son. To take him down, we will have to go through 2 true titans. I see.
The Void King immediately discarded the idea, since trying to overcome 2 true titans was a task requiring the Dark King's direct involvement.
There is a way. The astral bloodline realm will open in a few days, and no one above the Apotheosis realm can enter, so the patriarchs cannot protect the boy there. I have already set pieces in motion.
A sharp light appeared in the eyes of the Void King as he heard this, and he softly nodded.
As always, you never bring a problem without a solution. It is my pleasure to be of assistance.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 532, Emerging from Secluded Cultivation.
It is my pleasure to be of assistance.
The Soul King showed a radiant smile as he performed a slight bow toward the Void King.
Proceed as you see fit. I don't care about the cost, but we must kill that boy. He has already grown too much.
Once that was settled, the Void King turned to the Blood King, and his eyes began to glow as the starlight in them burst with overwhelming gravitational power.
Boom.
Before the Blood King could react, a shocking gravitational force coalesced around his body, sending him crashing into the ground and breaking the chair in which he was seated. The Blood King immediately tried to fight back, but just as he raised his head a few centimeters off the ground, the Void King appeared beside him and thrust his head back down.
Crack.
The sound of breaking bones echoed across the room, and it seemed that the Void King was ready to shatter the skull of the Blood King.
If it weren't for the fact we are at war, I would kill you here and now for lying to me. You are lucky, but there will not be a second time, as I will shatter every atom in your body the next time you fail me.
As soon as the voice of the Void King faded, so did the gravitational force. The Void King did not even bother to glance at the Blood King and left the room. The Soul King and Shadow King stared at the Blood King with disdain and pity before leaving as well. The Blood King slowly stood up the next second, and rage and fury appeared on his face.
It's all the fault of that boy. It's all his fault.
Cain was inside an empty cauldron in the throne room of Lord Kabuto, and the life wave constantly flooding the room flowed into his evolution car, where the essence star devoured it. Despite the wanton consumption of the sky blue star in Cain's evolution car, there was enough energy in the room for him to supply rebirth hot, flooding his veins and morphing the cellular structure of his blood cells. The sacred organ also devoured sunlight energy, improving Cain's constitution. After 5 days, he opened his eyes, and the full might of his essence wave and astral wave burst out of his body. Bloodthirsty runes made with the blood of the Draco lightning frog covered his arms and legs as blood wings emerged from his back. Then his blazing car began to thrive, filling his body with the power of sunlight energy, improving his striking power and speed, as well as the hardness of his already immensely powerful physique. The tons of platinum-level metals that had flooded the cauldron were already inside Cain's flesh and blood. Having pushed the biomtal Herculean technique to the platinum heart level, and gaining a body as strong as the armor that Apotheosis Realm Masters used to protect their bodies. Although Cain no longer trained the blood seal art cultivation technique, he did not discard the bloodthirsty seal since they could improve his striking power, not to mention that it would require very little strength as his blood chamber was more than enough to supply all the blood energy he needed for his biomtal Herculean technique, bloodthirsty seal, and blood wings. After pushing his physical power to the limit, Cain took out Slaughter, and the blade burst with essence wave as the power of the Law of Blood and Law of Space coalesced around it, just as bloodthirsty runes covet it. Enjoy more content from Freeweb Novel. Cain took a deep breath as he waved his blade, generating indentations in space that would burst with blood energy the next second. He had just performed an attack that could cut in half an Apotheosis Master before taking a step forward and appearing at the other end of the room. He did not move extremely fast, but instead used an ability of the Crimson Void cultivation technique known as spatial phase. The skill allowed Cain to shift his position in space, which is commonly used to put distance between an essence cultivator and his enemies. Yet, a dual cultivator like Cain could use it to get closer to the enemy and take full advantage of his body's power. After that, Cain waved his blade again, but this time, no attack came, or at least not where his blade struck.
Boom.
An arc of blood energy struck the wall on the other end of the room, nearly 100 meters away from Cain's location. That was also a Crimson Void technique called Warp Strike that allowed Cain to teleport energy strikes to unexpected locations, striking enemies from multiple directions and unpredictable angles. Cain couldn't help but smile as he saw the power of that strike. He clenched his grip over Slaughter as he reached the 4th level of the Crimson Void cultivation technique. The Crimson Void cultivation technique had 5 levels, which were in order: Foundation Stage, Consolidation Stage, Blood Master Stage, Void Blood Nexus Stage, and Divine Void Blood Stage. Reaching the 4th level meant Cain's mastery over the technique was just as high as that of a peak Apotheosis Master. Not only would his attacks have more power, but he should finally be able to use the cultivation technique's signature domain skill. Just as Cain was about to take out the spatial orb he obtained from Lord Zanguines, a message arrived through his AI chip module.
Boy, are you ready? We should not delay the ceremony anymore if we want you to enter the astral bloodline realm.
Cain's eyes widened as he heard that, and he focused on the date, realizing there were already just 3 days until the opening of the astral bloodline realm. He had lost himself in his cultivation and forgotten about the passage of time.
I am heading out.
Cain took a moment to seal his astral wave and used the red mask that had fused into his flesh to hide his astral rebirth path of power. He could still use the sunlight energy to infuse his attacks and perform the range of skills granted by his Solis lineage, but using Essence Wave as the fuel would diminish their raw strength.
It is fine. Even if I only use my essence evolution path of power, I should be able to deploy battle power at the upper stages of the Apotheosis realm.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 533, Saga to the Hyperion Continent I. After ensuring his body and energy pools were fine, Cain focused on the castle, and with just the intent of leaving, he was teleported out. As Cain appeared in the sky, his eyes widened since he saw that the entire Solis clan's sacred home seemed to have experienced a carnival that had been ongoing for several days already. Cain did not have to wonder about the main topic behind this carnival, since giant pictures of him were spread across the sky. They depicted his current appearance and had the title,
Sun Avatar.
Above his head, he saw thousands of members from the Solis clan present. Still, there were also people from several different factions, and he recognized many from the 10 great bloodlines, including a significant number from the Zanguini's clan. The next second, Cain turned to the side and saw a beautiful woman with lion-like ears, dark hair, and golden pupils appear beside him. Of course, her beauty could not affect the heart of a master of order like Cain. The young woman was a little surprised to see the disinterest in the young man, as she knew just how enticing her presence was. As expected, someone that caught the attention of the patriarch could not be normal. After that small thought, the young woman clasped her hands and bowed toward Cain.
I am Ran, disciple of Core Elder Lusmia. I will take you to the pavilion for the crowning ceremony.
Cain was a little surprised to learn that the woman was the disciple of one of the Divine Ascension Masters of the Solis clan. That old geezer seems to want to tempt me. Cain could only shrug his shoulders as he figured out the intent in sending the woman to fulfill such a menial role as guiding him. He did not really care about it as long as she was not overboard.
Please.
Cain nodded to the woman before signaling her to lead the way. Ran did not waste time and guided him to a large open pavilion with hundreds of people waiting outside. Although the Solis clan's sacred home was immensely large and capable of housing millions, Cain and Ran moved extremely fast, reaching the pavilion in less than a minute. Cain's figure immediately drew attention since the entire festival was in his honor, yet he had not made a single appearance. To be fair, Cain was not even aware that such an event was taking place, and he only thought that Lord Kabuto would make a small ceremony, not such a grand event. What an annoyance. Cain could only sigh, but there was nothing he could do. Besides, he would not go around making a fuss after all the sacrifices that Lord Kabuto had made to give him the Solis clan bloodline. As he gazed at the pavilion, Cain noticed 4 thrones. 3 of them were already occupied, but the one at the head and a single step lower than the others was empty. It was evident that this particular seat was reserved for him.
Thanks for the guide.
By the time Ran heard those words, Cain had already reached the throne. What formidable speed! The woman was a wave king, but her battle power was not shy of the apotheosis realm, yet she could not keep up with Cain's speed, leaving her eyes full of wonder and awe. Cain did not notice the look on Ran's face, as he was not trying to show off and was moving at a normal speed. It was just that his movements carried a slight trace of the mystery and might of the law of space after having reached the extreme basic understanding.
Foster father, Core Elders.
Cain clasped his hands and performed a bow to each of the people on the thrones. The 2 Core Elders nodded to Cain, but did not offer any words. They did not have a bias against the young man, but neither did they have a favorable impression since they did not know him at all. Lord Kabuto did not reveal anything about the prophecy to the duo, not because they gave him a reason not to trust them. Like Cain's dual cultivation, the fewer people knew about it, the fewer the chances that someone could use the information to their advantage.
Hahaha, my foster son has arrived, and it is time for the Sun Avatar crowning to begin.
Lord Kabuto's voice echoed across the earth and sky, full of jubilation and happiness, as he enhanced the connection of the Godslayer human to the Solis clan, and, by extension, to the entire Deus Behemoth race. Hundreds of people were allowed to enter the pavilion as they saw how the patriarch of the Solis clan adopted a solemn aura and began to channel the power of the golden tree, making his aura spread in all directions across the city.
Let us hear his saga.
When performing a crowning and bestowing a title on an individual, it was customary for the Deus Behemoth race to display their path and feats. As for how Lord Kabuto obtained the information, given his status, It was not hard to access Cain's personal record gathered by the Deus Behemoth Empire's intelligence. Soon, everybody saw how images began to form in the sky, showing the figure of Cain when he just entered the collapsing Lightning Military Academy.
Cain Lorifer was a young orphan who entered the military academy of the collapsing lightning sector following the steps of his honorable late father. He immediately excelled, showing his strong spirit and merciless aura to his enemies.
Soon, the figure in the sky showed Cain standing over a pile of corpses of members of the dark races, but there were also human skeletons beneath his feet. His eyes were cold and full of brutality that seemed capable of freezing anyone's heart.
Of course, just as my foster son was capable of brutality beyond measure, he was also a warrior of justice and honor, putting his life on the line as he and his fellow soldiers protected cities from the ravenous acts of wave beasts.
Your next read is at Freeweb Novel. The image of Cain on top of a pile of corpses changed. Soon, everybody saw him leading hundreds of soldiers against thousands of wave beasts, with him in the lead facing the greatest threats. Powerhouses and people of the other clans had shown coldness in their eyes when they saw the first picture since, while they understood that cruelty was needed in one's cultivation path, it was not a feat people found enjoyable. However, people showed admiration as they saw the picture of him leading a small army to defend the innocent, since those were core principles that the Deus Behemoth race respected, especially in times when the wave beasts had killed so many of them. Lord Kabuto smiled as he saw the people's reaction and let the image linger for a few seconds before showing a new one. In it, a young man and a woman faced a large Atrox, and it depicted Cain marching valiantly into the fray. Cain had not cared about the previous pictures, but his eyes narrowed as he saw the young woman in this one, and a flash of sadness appeared. Even as a master of order, the sight of Beals was not something he could ignore. Of course, he had the power to sever those emotions at any time, but he refused to do it, as he felt it would be an insult to the memory of the young woman who sacrificed herself to save his life.
My foster son values nothing more than friendship and honor, which was why he did not hesitate to march into the fray when he learned that his two comrades were facing a wounded Atrox wave champion, despite being a simple level 2 wave warrior.
Shock and awe appeared in the eyes of everybody who heard those words, since the idea that a level 2 wave warrior would jump into the fray against a wave champion Atrox was absurd. Even if the enemy was wounded, who would have the courage to do something like that? It sounded fantastic, but no one thought for even a second that Lord Kabuto would lie, since it would be easy for the powerhouses present to learn the truth. Besides, everybody already knew Cain could kill a divine beast as a peak wave champion. Once again, the image in the sky changed. This time, it showed Cain marching to the peak of a massive mountain with thousands of soldiers behind him. And on the zenith of that mountain was an enormous portal that seemed to dive into a new dimension.
Other than overwhelming battle power, my foster son has always deployed great tactical and warfare strategy skills, being able to lead an army of military students against horde after horde of wave beasts, carving a bloody path into a natural inheritance, and seizing his first holy weapon with his bare hands.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 534, Saga to the Hyperion Continent, I. All the powerhouses gazing at the picture adopted solemn expressions. Although they did not deny Cain's feats, many could be explained if he had hidden help. That train of thought would not be entirely wrong since Cain obtained assistance in the form of blood-hand skill during the Blade Mountain events. However, nothing could assist you within a natural inheritance, and you could only depend on yourself. Clearly, the young man did not need the assistance of others to shine. The image in the sky changed again, and this time, it showed Cain on top of a red ocean in the middle of two great armies, and above him, there was a figure covered in bloody fog.
My foster son's influence does not limit itself to small skirmishes, as he was the core figure in the Blood Sea Civil War, a conflict with two titans instigated by one of the mighty Dark Kings. Not only did Cain help the righteous side to win, but he protected the civilians, and his influence forced a true titan to escape.
All the powerhouses stared at Cain with awe as they connected the dots. Cain's background in the Godslayer humankind empire was not shallow, and there must be people at the true Titan level guarding him. That information was enough to erase the notion that the young man needed to travel to another continent to improve his background, since he was clearly very successful in his home. Once again, the picture changed. This time, it showed a bloody figure chasing Cain as he went through a massive portal with a bleeding wound on the center of his chest.
Unfortunately, no good deed goes unpunished. During his time in the capital, the Blood King ambushed my foster son. Despite the immense difference in their powers, Cain was able to escape, but not before having his rebirth heart crippled.
When people heard that, a flash of pity appeared in their eyes, since you needed more than talent to achieve Cain's power. It required immense hard work and numerous lucky chances, so the idea of losing everything and starting from zero was terrifying. Of course, losing his cultivation had little to no impact on Cain, since he could always strive in another path. However, that mental fortitude was thanks to his mastery of order, or else even he would have had difficulty assimilating everything. Lord Kabuto changed the image again, showing Cain standing proudly with sky blue energy emerging from his lower abdomen and surrounded by shadowy figures.
Of course, not even a crippled sacred organ could detain my foster son's path, and he simply started from scratch with his essence evolution path of power, becoming the nightmare of the dark factions in the Chronos continent that went by the name of Scarlet King. There, he not only destroyed several Tier 1 factions, but was involved in the battle between two Tier 0 factions, hijacking their intercontinental teleportation formation and arriving at our home. We had not even heard his name, and he had already improved the safety of our empire.
Once again, people focused on Cain, especially those who took the military path, since uncovering a secret intercontinental teleportation formation that connected their home to Chronos was a great prowess that could easily gain the Emperor's favor. The figure in the sky changed one final time, showing Cain with a golden aura covering the entire continent like a great hero. Cain saw their gazes, and the truth was that he had done everything for himself, but if they wanted to give him credit, he would not reject it.
Now, who among you wants to challenge my foster son to test the might of a true great warrior?
Read new chapters at Freeweb Novel. The voice of the patriarch of the Solis clan made the eyes of several people in the crowd burn with fighting will. Although in the human race, defying someone to a battle during a ceremony could be considered a lack of respect, in the Deus Behemoth civilization, it was normal and a chance for the person to prove to everybody their might. Cain knew it would happen, but there was no fear in his heart since this would only be a mock battle. Besides, he doubted that someone from the younger generation could pose a challenge even if he sealed his astral rebirth path of power. Powerful auras spread across the open pavilion, all belonging to people with bursting vitality, great foundations, and overwhelming power. Cain's eyes narrowed as he felt that there were dozens of peak wave kings and several apotheosis realm masters focusing on him with fighting will. All of them were between 50 and 100 years old. There were no divine ascension masters exuding fighting intent, as those persons were already hundreds of years old, and they would only be mocking themselves if they were to meddle in the business of the younger generation. Too many. Cain's eyes narrowed as he realized there would be dozens of challenges if he did not do something, so he prepared to diminish those numbers. His eyes glowed with red light as he vanished from the throne and appeared thousands of meters in the sky before waving his hand, releasing 9 spheres charged with the power of space law.
BOOMMMs.
Just as people wondered what Cain planned to do, they saw his energy pool explode, unleashing a burst of essence wave, but that was far from the most amazing thing, as an explosion of blood energy also emerged from his evolution core. The size of his secondary energy pool did not fall short of that of an apotheosis realm master, making clear just how high his stamina would be. That was not all, since it also meant that Cain's mastery over the law of blood must be nearing the extreme law fragmentation stage. Such talent on the law of blood was exceptional, leaving even those from the Zanginis clan in awe. Prince Kuro and Desmond were present at the ceremony, and both showed surprise and admiration as they saw the might of Cain's energy pool and how he had grown so much in such a short amount of time. Cain had not finished, for after displaying the might of his law of blood and flooding the area with his blood energy essence, he began to manipulate the essence wave following the principles of the law of space. Everyone watched in awe and wonder as space began to change. Soon, a 500-meter radius domain appeared. Floating rivers of blood appeared beneath Cain's feet as the sky turned red, and he stood in the middle like a divine god. Domain skills were powerful, but required a massive amount of energy. Luckily, Cain had already covered that, and the next second, his ego wave, which could extend for over 1,000 kilometers, fused into the Nexus blood domain. The red force field stabilizes the Nexus blood domain, providing it with all the energy it could need and improving its power even more. Cain opened his palm, making slaughter appear, and the next second, the blood rune covering his entire body began to glow as sunlight energy covered his weapon and extremities.
I will only face those who can endure the pressure of my domain.
The patriarchs and powerhouses who came to the crowning could not help but smile and softly nod as they saw how Cain handled the situation. With that single move, he avoided a lot of unnecessary fights, and no one could dispute the requirement he put forth. After all, if they could not endure the power of the Nexus blood domain, how could they even fight against Cain?
Allow me to be the first to challenge the man who earned the respect of our patriarch.
Those words echoed across the pavilion as a figure bathed in golden light flew into the sky. Lord Kabuto's eyes narrowed as he saw that young woman with golden hair, white armor, lion ears, and deer's antlers flashing to the sky.
It seems that young Tania is eager to face my boy.
Lord Kabuto smiled as he glanced at the Divine Ascension Master to his right. The woman showed a complicated expression as she saw her car apprentice flashing to the domain with a fierce smile.
Tania has trained very hard and has always sought to attain the Sun Avatar role. She is probably eager to fight and face the boy in his prime.
Lord Kabuto showed a sympathetic smile to the woman on his right, and he knew that many promising geniuses had worked very hard to attain the Sun Avatar title, so they must be happy to see it fall into the hands of an outsider from another race.
She is very good, and I can see that she has trained very hard, having overcome the flesh calamity before turning 70 with a foundation that can only be described as spotless. You've done excellent work with her, Kenia, but I can only say her destiny fell short.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 535, Facing Challenges, I. Lord Kabuto's statement had no apologies or false words, as he did not feel the need to lie to the duo. No matter how good the young woman was, she could not compare with Cain. Tania was indeed highly talented, having overcome the flesh calamity at a very young age and able to face those at the peak apotheosis realm. However, Cain was a divine monster capable of killing a divine beast while being a peak wave champion, and his talent only grew after his evolution to the Wave King rank. Kenia, the early Divine Ascension Master, could only nod. Of course, she was not happy that such a grand title would land on an outsider, but she was not so biased and close-minded as to not recognize talent when she saw it, and Cain was the definition of the word in every sense. The exchange between the two Divine Ascension Masters from the Solis clan lasted just a moment, and Tania had already entered Cain's domain. Tania's eyes widened the moment she stepped inside the Nexus blood domain as she sensed her blood flow becoming sluggish, and she perceived it would freeze at any second, paralyzing her body. If that was not enough, the Nexus blood domain also unleashed an overwhelming pressure as well as weak spatial distortion affecting Tania's senses. As an astral rebirth cultivator, Tania had zero mastery over the powers of the law of space and law of blood, but she did not need to understand them to fight against them.
BOOMMMMMs.
The woman's dark golden astral wave exploded the next second, fighting against the powers affecting her blood and senses, as she took two small swords from her wrists and pointed them at Cain.
Are you ready?
Cain could see the zeal and dangerous light in Tania's eyes and knew the woman would be troublesome, as she would probably not contain herself and do something reckless. Of course, he was not afraid, as his biumptal Herculean technique would allow him to take a strike point blank from the woman. There would be a lot of damage since Cain only relied on Platinum Heart's passive effect, but he would survive. However, That would tell everybody he had a body that no essence wave cultivation could attain as a wave king. Although it would not be enough to reveal the secret of his dual cultivation, it would make people curious about Kane's constitution. I guess I need to be extra careful. Kane's eyes glowed with a flash of golden light as he activated the flow, and the movement of the woman's muscle fiber, tendon, meridian, and energy flow became evident in his mind as he raised Slaughter and softly nodded.
Boom.
A burst echoed across the sky as scorching sunlight burst from Tania's legs, pushing her forward at a shocking speed, and the same energy covered her small swords as she hacked toward Kane. Stay connected through Freeweb novel. The Flesh Calamity Apotheosis Master appeared in front of Kane in the blink of an eye, and she hacked with her swords, one aiming at Kane's right arm while the other at his left leg. Her martial arts and swordplay were shocking, denoting countless hours of intense work. Kane was surprised to see the skill level behind the young woman's swordplay. That attack would have put him in a hard spot before his evolution as a wave king, even if he had unleashed his dual cultivation, but things were different now. Sunlight covered Kane's legs as he took a step back, fusing his footwork with spatial phase, narrowly dodging both blades as he waved Slaughter, generating a rift in space that blasted an ocean of blood energy straight into Tania's chest.
Boom.
The burst of blood energy sent the young woman flying away, but she almost instantly regained control over her body. There was a small trail of blood on the corner of Tania's mouth, but she just smiled as she flashed again toward Kane. Kane saw how the woman once again managed to narrow the distance between them nearly instantly, but he could read all her moves thanks to the flow. It was easy for Kane to step to the side and dodge the attacks before countering with another quantum laceration that sent her flying again. Tania clenched her teeth as she endured the strikes and flashed again and again off to Kane, but the outcome was the same. She could not land a strike on the young man while he could easily dodge her and counterattack, sending her flying away. Despite the difficulty, the woman did not lose focus, nor did her fighting spirit wane as she continued flashing off to Kane, sending all kinds of ferocious attacks. Kane could dodge all of Tania's attacks and counterattacks, but it did not mean the fight was easy since if he were to lower his guard for even a moment, one of those attacks would land on him and do severe damage. Not to mention that the Deus Behemoth's body was incredibly resilient, so most of Kane's counterattacks could barely harm her. Of course, things would be different if he channeled the Sundering concept into the holy weapon, but that was not something one would do in a mock fight. After 5 minutes, Tania was having difficulty regulating her breath, and her arms felt heavy. Only then did the woman sigh, store her small swords, and nod toward Kane.
I admit that you are truly strong.
Those who knew the Deus Behemoth's personality understood just how meaningful those words were, as she was famously stubborn. She then left the domain and returned with the rest of the youths of the Solis clan. Kane stood inside the domain as he felt several people were still focusing on him even after seeing his battle with Tania, and soon, one of them took a step forward. His eyes narrowed as he saw that the man had wolf-like characteristics and a large bastard sword on his back. He is also a Flesh Calamity Master, but his cultivation is higher than Tania, as I can feel that he is just one step away from the Bone Calamity.
I am impressed by your great mastery over the law of space, Colonel Lorifer. My name is Roderick, and I am from the Fenrir clan. Please allow me to compare my skills with yours.
Roderick took a step forward and immediately appeared next to the blood domain. He did not hesitate to enter, and while he could feel pressure affecting his blood flow, the power of the law of space could not affect him. Although the man followed the astral rebirth path of power and did not master the laws, his bloodline granted him proficiency regarding the cosmic powers of space, allowing his senses to adapt to spatial distortions instinctively. Kane could feel the power of the man and knew it would be harder for him to counter this one using the law of space, but his eyes were calm as he took a deep breath and increased the amount of blood energy flooding through Slaughter. Once Kane was at his peak, he nodded to the man, mocking the start of the fight. There was no energy blast as Roderick flashed toward Kane, but his speed was even greater than Tania's. That was not all, as a silver light covered his bastard sword, making it faster and increasing its severing force. Many of the powerhouses present were surprised to see the dual power of space and sword force on the man. 2 forces were inherited within the Fenrir bloodline, the power of space and the sod foss. Usually, only one of these aspects was displayed. Still, those with great talent and luck could awaken both fosses, allowing them overwhelming speed and destructive power. There were many ways for Cain to face the Deus Behemoth's bastard sod, but he employed one that shocked everybody. Instead of trying to put distance between them, he flashed forward, meeting the descending bastard sod head-on. Roderick was just as shocked as everybody else, and a flash of concern appeared in his eyes. It wasn't that he feared a close battle, but his broadsword was descending with enough strength to split a mountain in half, and he could not stop it in time. Although the Deus Behemoth from the Fenrir clan was full of fighting spirit, that did not mean he wanted to severely injure and possibly cripple the son avatar of the Solis clan. However, to the Deus Behemoth's surprise, Slaughter met his weapon before it descended and managed to direct it to the left, avoiding a wound and leaving Cain in the perfect position to trigger a quantum laceration that sent the member of the Fenrir clan flying away. Many people watching the clash could not help but feel wonder and confusion, as they did not understand how Cain could outpower Roderick in a direct clash. After all, one was an essence cultivator, and the other followed the astral rebirth path. Nevertheless, those with high enough cultivation saw that it was not strength that Cain used to overcome Roderick's bastard sword.
That young man could strike the bastard sword at a perfect angle while redirecting the flow of the sword force, pushing all the strength behind the blade to a different direction. It is that same strange ability he used to deflect your fireballs.
The one who spoke was the Divine Ascension Master, sitting to the right of Lord Kabuto. He was Lusmia, and the man did not hide his surprise and admiration for Cain's abilities, showing an utterly pragmatic stance toward the new sun avatar.
That ability is truly a pinnacle power.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 536, Facing Challenges, Lord Kabuto nodded toward Lusmia, considering the skill to be something even he found hard to comprehend. It was not based on a simple understanding of the laws, but seemed to delve into highly complex principles. Although Lord Kabuto was interested in the flow, he did not ask Cain to share it. Firstly, he did not want to pressure the young man into sharing his secret. It was also important to note that mastering such an ability was not something you could get better at with higher cultivation. The Tribulation Enhancement was a perfect example of the difficulty of those rankless skills. Although they tried their best, in the end, Lord Kabuto and Lord Zanginis gave up since it took them nearly a week to conjure a single one-revolution flame. Clearly, they did not have talent in that aspect, and would not be wasting their time if they kept working on it. Roderick was just as perplexed as everybody else as he attempted to understand Cain's skill. What was that ability? The young genius of the Fenrir clan had heard of Cain's unique powers, but only now did he witness it. The only word he could use to describe it was unfathomable. Unfortunately, Roderick did not have time to think. His eyes widened as an arc of blood energy appeared before him. Roderick could perceive the energy strike that teleported right in front of him due to his attunement to the force of space, but he could not dodge it and only had time to raise his bastard sword as a shield.
Boom!
The explosion sent Roderick flying again, and while his arms trembled, he was fine. At least, that was the case until he felt a blade on his back. The man's eyes widened as he realized that Cain had silently appeared behind him, and there was nothing he could do but take a new blast of blood energy point blank.
Boom!
People outside of the Nexus blood domain saw how Cain had fired the blast from the weapon after placing it on Roderick's back to improve the destructive power, and could not help but feel awe at the young man's power and courage. It took a lot of bravery to fight from such a close range against a flesh calamity master. Cain's eyes narrowed as he saw the figure of the Deus Behemoth flying away with blood leaking from his mouth, and he waved Slaughter again, firing 3 warp strikes before flashing forward.
Don't underestimate me.
Roderick shouted as the power of Space Force flooded through his body, allowing him to delay the warp strikes enough to wave his bastard sword to destroy them all. Without losing momentum, he guided the sword toward Cain's approaching figure, detonating a massive blast of sword force that made the entire domain tremble. Lord Kabuto's eyes widened as he saw the blast of Sodphos engulfing Cain. He knew that attack could not severely damage the immensely robust body of the young man, but he did not want anyone to realize the secret of Cain's dual cultivation. Luckily, the old man's worries were unfounded, as Cain emerged from the blast of Sodphos, surrounded by a barrier that seemed to be created by vibrating particles infused with a wanton amount of blood energy. Cain smiled as he saw how powerful the Void Blood Shield was. It used the power of the Law of Space and Law of Blood to form a barrier around him that generated small rifts in space that constantly burst with blood energy, deflecting any attack. Roderick's eyes narrowed as he saw Cain's immaculate figure. He was not surprised, since that last attack was a long-range blast, spreading the power in all directions, but he was still impressed by the overwhelming defensive power of the spell. Actually, the Sodphos blast generated shock waves that reached Cain's body, but this one was so strong that the attack failed to do any damage. Of course, no one but Cain knew that. The member of the Fenrir clan stared at Cain for a few seconds before finally sighing and giving up. Roderick could not catch Cain, at least not without going all out and using his most powerful attack, but that would be going overboard. Not to mention that Cain would not react gently to that level of aggression, and Roderick was not so arrogant as to think he would end up without wounds in a fight to the death.
The Solis clan has obtained a very good addition. Your spells and mastery over the laws truly surprise me.
Roderick put the bastard sword on his back and clasped his hand, to which Cain responded in the same manner. After that, the young man from the Fenrir clan left, leaving Cain alone inside the domain once again. Many still watched the blood domain in the sky with fighting spirit, but none stepped forward. Roderick was already at the peak of the younger generation of the Deus Behemoth, and Cain managed to take the lead once again, so they would only be making fools of themselves.
I wonder if I could be so shameless as to request a small combat.
A woman with a youthful appearance and a beautiful face took a step forward. An extremely pure bloodline aura emanated from her body, but she did not follow the astral rebirth path of power, and the power of the laws surrounded her. Like all members of the Deus Behemoth race, she had a humanoid appearance, but there were bestial features, such as her beautiful emerald wings, snake-like pupils, and green scales covering her arms and legs.
My name is Urian, and I am part of the Aeolus clan. Although I am less than 100 years old, I am already a fire tribulation master. Of course, I am not so shameless as to request true combat, and I am only interested in exchanging a few blows with the new sun avatar.
Many of the people present nodded to Urian's approach. She was already a late Apotheosis realm master and over 90 years old. Although the Deus Behemoth female was still considered in the younger generation, it was nearing the limits, and it only made sense that the woman would not request actual combat with Cain, who was just an early wave king and not even 20 years old. If Cain refused, no one would say anything. After all, the difference between their cultivation bases was too significant, but the Godslayer humans softly nodded. Enjoy exclusive content from Freeweb Novel. Cain was not so arrogant as to think he could defeat the young woman, as he felt her strength did not fall short of the Draco lightning frog. Even if I were to use the full power of my cultivation, I would have a hard time just facing her, but I would like to see the type of skills she can unleash. Urian smiled as she nodded toward Cain, and then took a step forward, immediately appearing inside the blood domain. Her speed was even faster than Roderick's, and her presence was much more challenging to perceive. Once she stood inside the blood domain, Urian's essence wave exploded, and the size of her energy pool was overwhelming to the point that Cain's eyes burst with red light as he had to use the full strength of his willpower to keep the domain stable. Urian's smile widened as she saw that Cain's domain could remain stable even as she flooded it with her energy pool that could unleash more than enough radiation to flood an old world's continent. She took her bow with her left arm and plucked one of her feathers with the right one. Cain's eyes narrowed as he saw how Urian's feather transformed into an arrow that enhanced the power of her essence wave and the might of her law of wind. He took a deep breath and grabbed Slaughter with both, channeling all his energy into the weapon. The Godslayer human and Deus Behemoth looked at each other, and both solemnly nodded at the same time before unleashing their attacks.
Quantum laceration. Serpent gale.
Cain waved Slaughter down, generating a massive rift in space that exploded with a blast of blood energy toward the Deus behemoth. At the same time, Urian let go of her feather, and it flashed forward, transforming into a green tornado with the form of a snake.
Boom.
Both attacks clashed in the middle of the Nexus blood domain, generating a massive blast and destroying each other. However, while the explosion neutralized the blast of blood energy, the broken part of the green tornado did not disperse, transforming into smaller wind snakes and flashing toward Cain from different directions. Cain's eyes widened as he saw that, and a solemn expression appeared as he noticed a sign of spirituality in the spell. Law integration. When it comes to law mastery in Ether, there are 3 great realms: basic understanding, law fragmentation, and finally, law integration. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 537, Law Integration. When it comes to law mastery in Ether, there are 3 great realms: basic understanding, law fragmentation, and finally, law integration. As its name suggests, basic understanding is the most basic of the 3 states of comprehension. Martial artists at this level develop a fundamental comprehension of universal laws and how they relate to martial arts and spells. They start to understand the basic principles of these laws and apply them to enhance their abilities, but it is still elementary and only granted a slight upgrade in power. Of course, there are exceptions to the weakness of basic understanding. Some laws, even at this level, can significantly improve your might, but those are extremely powerful and challenging, such as the law of space. And even then, their understanding is still shallow. Only at law fragmentation can a cultivator call himself savvy when it comes to a law. At this stage, martial artists delve deeper into the laws, breaking them down into smaller components for a more nuanced understanding. Cain's law mastery over the law of darkness had delved deep into this realm, which was one of the many reasons he could advance so fast in the initial stages of the law of space. After all, the law of darkness yielded a certain level of control over space, and by reaching law fragmentation, he could delve into that power. However, even if you reach the extreme law fragmentation realm, you can only call yourself a scholar of the laws. Only after advancing to the next level would you gain the right to call yourself a master. Law integration delves into the integration of fragmented laws, gaining a comprehensive understanding of their interplay and synergy. This stage often involves the development of unique perspectives and the creation of personalized techniques and martial arts styles. People at this level can use their insight to create unique spells tailored especially for them. However, the most important and significant milestone of law integration is the fact you can infuse the power of the laws directly into your spells, allowing them to gain a certain degree of spirituality. Before reaching law integration, an essence cultivator must exert continuous control and focus on their spells and energy. Without a cultivator's focus, a spell would just be a pile of scattered energy with flawed precision and even lower power. Nevertheless, after reaching law integration, things change. An essence cultivator's essence wave would gain spirituality, being able to perceive the intent and instincts of the caster, allowing it to obtain countless variations and attack on its own if needed. That was why when Urian's Serpent Gale spell shattered, it was easy for the woman to transform the scattered energy into smaller variations that carried on with the attack. Even if the woman had a tailored lineage and focused only on the law of wind and nothing else to achieve law integration before becoming a divine ascension master, her talent and potential were extraordinary. Urian definitely had a chance to reach the realm of Titans. Cain's mind went through all these thoughts, but he could not allow himself to lose focus as he had to handle the far lesser serpent gales coming from different directions. Using the energy redirection abilities of the flow could work on only one of those strikes, leaving the other 3 to handle. Using Slaughter to destroy one of them, then redirecting another with my left arm to counter a third one, and relying on the Void Blood Shield to defend against the lost one. Find exclusive stories on Freeweb Novel. Having decided on a path, Cain channeled his energy into Slaughter, waving it to the side and generating a rift in space that blasted one wind snake to pieces. He then used his left arm to redirect another of the snakes, making it clash with one coming from the right.
Boom. Boom.
Two explosions echoed inside the blood domain as two winged snakes crashed into each other before the last one blasted upon making contact with the void blood shield. Powerful green gales covered Kane's figure, but it did not last long as he flashed up. There was no damage on the surface of his body, but blood leaking from the corner of his mouth indicated that the blast had wounded him internally. Urian was surprised to see only a trail of blood in Kane's mouth. Her attack had no killing intent, but was still very powerful, yet its damage to the young man seemed minimal. The truth was that the explosion did even less damage than what the Deus Behemoth expected. The blast did make Kane's body tremble. Still, it was not enough to generate internal bleeding, and he had bitten his tongue to give the idea he suffered significant damage. Before Urian could even figure out the key behind Kane's endurance, her eyes narrowed as she saw the young man raise his blade. Soon, the full power of the domain began to concentrate in slaughter, generating a maelstrom of blood and destructive spatial energy.
Blood space vortex.
Kane shouted once all the power of the blood domain gathered above him, and then he sent the massive maelstrom crashing toward Urian. The Deus Behemoth woman did not hesitate before taking 3 feathers and making her energy explode, generating the phantom of a massive winged, feathered snake. She infused it into her arrows and sent the spells forward. A tornado in the form of a winged snake clashed head-on with the blood space vortex, generating waves of blood energy, wind force, and spatial force in all directions, making the sky above them form a massive storm.
Snap.
Before the 2 spells could destroy each other, a snap was heard, and a stream of sunlight energy flashed into the sky, neutralizing both spells and calming the sky. Lord Kabuto was the one who defused the attack of the duo as things were escalating too much, and he had to stop it. Kane's breathing was rough, and an uncomfortable expression appeared on his face as he had drained every iota of his essence wave and blood energy in that last attack. Although his body was well, his essence meridians were sawed due to the tremendous stress they found themselves under during the continuous fight. Urian was fine since her cultivation base and power were greater, and 4 tribulations had already refined her energy pool. Still, she was impressed to see the extent of destructive power the Godslayer human unleashed with a low cultivation base.
You are truly a terrific genius. It was a pleasure to test my skills against yours.
The Deus Behemoth clasped her hands and performed a slight bow. Kane stared at the woman, and after taking a deep breath, he also did the same. They both descended to the ground, with the Godslayer human returning to his throne to finish the crowning. There was no need for more combat, as Kane had already proved a battle power that only the older generation could overcome, and there was no one so shameless as to try to fight the young man who was hundreds of years younger than them. Lord Kabuto nodded as he saw that everything was in order, and his eyes once again flooded the sky and earth as he connected his mind with the Sun Tree.
As the Sun Avatar, my foster son, Kane Lorifer, gains the right to call himself the favoured child of the Sun Tree and inherits its power.
Shortly after Lord Kabuto uttered those words, the Sun Tree began to glow. Hundreds of small branches emerged from its trunk as they coalesced around Kane's figure. Kane saw how the branches fused into his skin, but he did not resist as his body rose into the sky, and 10 minutes later, golden wood armor covered his figure. Sun Avatar was not just a simple title. It came with several benefits, but the most important was the quasi-divine armor. It was an incredibly resilient armor that Kane could use even after becoming a divine ascension master. It worked with essence wave and astral wave. Of course, once the second type flowed through the armor, the defensive might of this one would improve 5-fold. Kane clenched his fists and could feel that even with his platinum heart, this armor would provide immense defensive power to his body. That was not all, since the sun armor also constantly swallowed the life wave from the surroundings and transformed it into sunlight energy that he could use for his spells and attacks. With this, my defensive power should not fall beneath the peak apotheosis realm, and once I can deploy astral blood ability, I should have a body that is not any weaker than a quasi-adamantium artifact. A body almost as strong as the armor that divine ascension masters use to protect their bodies. The idea that a wave king could achieve such a feat was incredible, yet Cain was already on the path to achieving it.
We salute the Sun Avatar.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 538, Exploring the Dream World I.
We salute the Sun Avatar.
People of the Solis clan shouted, with all those at the Wave King rank and below bowing before Cain, signifying his rank in the clan. Cain's eyes grew solemn as he clasped his hand and nodded to all the people of the Solis clan.
The Sun Avatar crowning has ended. I appreciate everybody's attendance, and I hope to see you all again during the opening of the Astral Bloodline Realm.
Lord Kabuto's voice echoed across the Solis clan's sacred home. Those who came from other families to witness the ceremony bowed to the man before leaving, while people of the Solis clan dispersed. The two divine ascension masters from the Solis clan bowed to Lord Kabuto and nodded to Cain before departing as well, leaving the Jew alone.
There are 3 days until the opening of the Astral Bloodline Realm. What would you like to do until then?
Cain's eyes narrowed as he heard that question. He had already acclimatized to his new cultivation, and while he had to seal his astral cultivation for the mock fights, they were enough to give him an idea of how powerful he was and test his skills. Cultivating and fighting would not help me. What to do? Just as Cain pondered his next step, his eyes narrowed, and a meaningful light appeared.
What is the safest place in the entire clan? Somewhere where I could let go of my guard without any danger.
Lord Kabuto was surprised by that question. It was clear he would do everything in his power to protect Cain, but it seemed that the young man wanted to go even a step further.
If you want complete safety, then there is no better place in the entire clan than inside it.
Cain saw how Lord Kabuto pointed to the sun tree, and his eyes narrowed as he focused on the majestic structure and immediately felt his sun armor reacting to it.
The sun armor will allow you to enter the sun tree, and this one will guard you until you wish to come out. It is normally used when the sun avatar is left in a severely injured condition and needs to boost up their healing in a comatose state, but you can also use it to rest without anyone being able to threaten you.
Lord Kabuto's words made it clear to Cain that he would be utterly safe once he stood inside the sun tree. After all, they would have to go through the tree's defenses to reach him, and this one was even more durable than a Titan tower.
Great, I will spend the next 3 days inside the sun tree. I will come out in time to enter the astral bloodline realm. Good, then do so. I will take care of official matters of the Empire in the meantime.
Cain nodded as he understood that someone with Lord Kabuto's background had a lot of important matters that required his help in the Deus Behemoth Empire, but he had pushed them back to help him.
I will see you then, foster father.
Lord Kabuto smiled as he felt Cain slowly reaching out to him. He nodded to the young man before rising to the sky and flashing into the distance. Cain watched Lord Kabuto leave and went to the sun tree. The tree immediately opened, allowing access to Cain, and once he was inside, he felt an absolute calm. With a single thought, the tree closed down while he was covered by a cocoon of green energy that seemed to stimulate his body's healing power. After ensuring everything was in order, Cain smiled, knowing this was the perfect place to explore something he had been eager to find out for a long time. I can finally go back to that dream world. Cain had always been someone very curious, and that dream world was indeed something that drew his attention. But the only problem was that once inside, he lost complete control over his body. He could not defend himself if someone attacked him since his consciousness had vanished entirely.
Apex, can you wake me up if there is any sign of danger?
Although Cain was sure the sun tree could protect him, he wanted a chance to wake up if there was danger and expected Apex to be able to do it.
I could generate a small burst with the Astral Beast Soul Core, shaking your soul sea. It would not harm you, but you should feel it. Let's try it.
Cain did not waste time and closed his eyes. Although going to sleep as soon as they wanted was impossible for ordinary people, he had absolute control over his body's chemical functions, so it took a thought to fall asleep. Unlike previous times, when Cain focused his mind on not leaving his body, he let go this time. The next second, Kane opened his eyes and found himself in the sky of a massive forest with giant trees. Kane saw his body remain as a phantasmagoric humanoid red energy field, and the sky was the same rainbow-colored. Shortly after arriving, Kane felt a slight tremor. It was feeble, but he smiled as he focused and woke up the next second.
I take it that it worked.
Apex's voice echoed inside Kane's mind. He had unleashed that soul tremor, and 3 seconds later, Kane woke up.
Yes, it certainly did. I will go back again. Wake me up if there is any danger, please. Will do.
With the confidence that he could react to any incoming threat, Kane fell asleep again. This time, he did not intend to leave the dream world until the opening of the astral bloodline realm. Explore more stories with Freeweb novel. Kane's eyes opened again in the forest. This time, he was determined to find other life forms. His body was weightless and did not require air, nor could it be affected by temperature, so it was easy for him to rise thousands of meters above the forest until he finally saw signs of civilization in the distance. They resembled vertical structures, and it was hard to say whether they were habitable.
It seems my physical capabilities are not that different from a normal human.
Kane's vision in ether allowed him to see an ant hundreds of meters away, and if he were to enhance his eyes with his astral wave, it could increase hundreds of times stronger, but that was not the case here. Not wanting to lose time, Kane began to float toward the vertical structure. His flying speed was not great, but his body could fly through solid objects, so he was still very fast, moving roughly 30 kilometers per hour. He had advanced a few hundred meters when his eyes narrowed as he looked down and began to see all sorts of wild fauna. There were insects such as spiders and worms, but there were also eagles, squirrels, and the like. Interesting. It seems that they instinctively stay away from where I first arrived. Kane glanced at all those animals, but they did not draw too much attention until he saw beasts that were completely new to him. The first one of those types that drew Kane's attention was a pack of deer that seemed to be running away, but unlike average deer, these had sky-blue shining antlers. Just as Kane wondered what they were running away from, he saw a nearly 2-meter-tall beast resembling a tiger lunging toward one of those shining deer. Wait, that is not a normal tiger. That is a saber-toothed tiger. Kane was amazed to see an old-world prehistoric beast appearing in this seemingly ordinary forest. As one would expect, the deer could not endure the saber-toothed tiger's massive power, and its life ended. The circle of life. Kane had killed millions of wave beasts, so he obviously would not feel bad about seeing a deer dying, and he just accepted it as the course of nature before slowly descending to the saber-toothed tiger. The beast kept consuming its food even as Kane phased through it. I cannot harm it, but it doesn't seem it can even detect my presence. Having discovered something new, Kane rose into the sky again and continued floating toward the city. He continued flying for roughly an hour when his eyes narrowed as he was finally able to gain a good view of the city. It was not so large, capable of holding roughly 1 million people, and the streets were packed. What drew a little surprise in Kane was the level of civilization he was seeing. There were large structures and houses in all directions, but no proper buildings or vehicles. It seems that the level of civilization in this place reminds me of the feudal era of the Old World. How strange. Just as those thoughts crossed Kane's mind, his eyes narrowed as he saw a dozen warriors on horseback marching out of the city and into the forest. Although Kane could not tell their power due to his condition, his perception was high enough to understand that they were not simple humans. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 539, Exploring the Dream World It. Their horses were marching at hundreds of kilometers per hour, and those on top could maintain their reins without problems. Clearly, they were able to deploy physical abilities and a speed of thought superior to ordinary mortals. This world's cultivators. Kane's interest was piqued as he saw those people. If you want to learn more from a place, you will find more information from those with a higher status and power. Although they were not really impressive, Kane still decided to follow them and saw how they dismounted from their horses before taking all sorts of weapons, with one person at the back holding a staff. Many of them began to charge different types of energy in their weapons, while those in the back with magic robes unleashed spells that seemed to enhance the physical might of the melee warrior. Cain was a little surprised to see those abilities. Although the magic boosts were not impressive and took a lot of time to charge, they were still abilities that cultivators in Aether did not have access to. It didn't take long for the group to come into contact with a pack of giant prehistoric bears. The melee warriors immediately took the lead, while the magic caster unleashed different offensive spells. Your adventure continues at Freeweb Novel. The level of coordination and teamwork displayed among the group was impressive, but Cain couldn't help but frown as he observed their limited abilities and power. Warriors, archers, rangers, and wizards, is this the type of cultivation path from this world? Although astral rebirth cultivation and essence evolution cultivation shared characteristics with warriors and wizards, there was a significant difference in their abilities. An essence evolution cultivator could fight at close range and cast spells nearly instantaneously, not charging them like a wizard. At the same time, astral rebirth cultivation had a plethora of elemental and mid-long range attacks they could use. By their robes, I can tell they are some sort of nobility, but their battle power is too low. A single-level Far-Wave warrior could kill all of them if he takes them by surprise. Seeing their power and realizing how little he could learn from them, Cain left and headed into the city. It was normal in several senses, with most of the population being regular people, and he only detected signs of cultivation in less than 5% of the population. Cain visited different locations and listened to the conversations of many people. Usually, he would wander and allow the AI chip module to gather all the information and give him a detailed summary, but that was not possible in this case, and he was forced to use his own means. It took him around 10 minutes to discover that the city's name was Gaulon City, under the control of the Gaulon family, a Viscount family. Those who left to hunt were the Gaulon Viscount and his entourage.
That power is enough to gain the title of Viscount.
In Aether, to become a Viscount, you would need to be at least a wave champion and have the power to level entire buildings with your bare hands, but the requirements in this place were much lower. They may not put so much emphasis on brute power in this place. It would make sense that connection, status, and armies would give you a position, since there is a limit to the power of a single person. Cain continued gathering information and eventually found out that this was one of the countless cities under the reign of the Trinity Kingdom. As Cain continued advancing toward the capital of the Trinity Kingdom, he saw larger cities. Some had millions of inhabitants, with the number of cultivators increasing exponentially the more he advanced. However, the social hierarchy remained the same, with a strict feudal system. More than once, Cain observed people who seemed to have higher cultivation adopting a submissive stance towards those weaker, but with a higher social status. It became clear to Cain that social status alone was enough to allow certain people to do whatever they wanted. During his journey, Cain saw a man on horseback moving nearly 3 times the speed of sound, battling what seemed to be a massive dinosaur over 10 meters tall. The man could deploy battle power that could match a wave champion, yet it seemed that he could not rise into the sky or perform any type of aerial movement. Although the clash between the warrior and the dinosaur was impressive from a brawling point of view, yet again, Cain noticed how the man's range of skills was very limited. If that warrior and astral cultivator with the same level of physical might were to fight, there would be no doubt that the second would win. After all, an astral cultivator could move through the air and use all sorts of spells to enhance himself and attack. It took Cain nearly 10 hours of continuous flight before he finally saw a cultivator rising into the sky. It was a woman in magic robes leading an army of 50 warriors on horseback. Interesting. Cain's eyes narrowed as he observed the woman and warriors. The woman had various equipment on her person, while the warriors wore the same type of golden armor on their bodies and a set of large spears on their backs. What drew Cain's attention was that strange runes covered every one of those warriors' armor and weapons. Judging by the physical might and speed they can achieve, they seem to unleash battle power similar to a late wave champion, so I assume the woman should be this world's equivalent of a wave king. Cain deviated from his path and followed the magic caster and the army. It didn't take long for them to reach what seemed to be a massive rocky mountain, nearly 50 meters tall and hundreds of meters long. Wait. Cain immediately noticed something amiss, but the magic caster raised her wand before he could figure out what was happening. A torrent of energy emerged from her body, one so immense that it rivaled the energy pool of a peak wave king.
Magma ball shower.
That alone was already impressive enough for Cain, but he was shocked to see hundreds of giant magma balls forming above the women. It took a second to finish her spells before she fired it toward the rocky mountain. The power in that spell could compare to that of an Apotheosis Master's spell, and her caster speed was not much slower.
Roar.
As soon as the magma balls fell, a Ra emerged, and Cain realized that the 50-meter-wide and hundreds-meter-long mountain range was actually a dragon with rocky skin. The mythical beast seemed to have been in a slumber, and pain appeared on its face as it raised its giant head and gazed at the magic caster in the sky. The woman, not even 1.7 meters in height, smaller than the eyes of the creature, showed no fear as she raised her wand again. Earth chains emerged from the ground, intertwining around the dragon's wings, stopping the beast from rising into the sky. The stone dragon roared as it attempted to free itself from the shackles, but could not. It opened its maw as it charged a breath attack. However, at this point, the warriors on horseback reached the beast, and their entire bodies began to glow. Cain could discern the power of those riders, and in his eyes, they were only marching to their death. Although it was true that numbers could make a difference in battle power at a certain point, 50 wave champions could do nothing to a beast capable of enduring an apotheosis-level spell. However, Cain used Ether's reasoning, and what he saw next shattered that. Runes began to glow on the horses, making them move like lightning, as runes also began to glow on the chest, shoulder, and arms of all the riders, not to mention that their spears also began to glow with overwhelming energy. Those 50 riders, whom 50 wave champions of any path could have easily overcome, become as strong as wave kings. They immediately divided into two groups, flanking the stone dragon, and just as the beast was about to unleash its breath attack against the magic caster in the sky, they sent their spears forward. At this point, the runes finally showed their power, as the thrusting force behind each of those spears was nothing short of an early wave king attack. That alone was impressive, but the warriors showed such precision that all 50 spears landed simultaneously before exploding on the right and left side of the stone dragon's neck. The stone dragon had just been charging its breath attack, so the spears generated not only a bleeding wound on its neck, but also a severe backlash, allowing the magic caster in the sky to finish casting her next spell.
Meteor fall.
A giant meteor, roughly 1/4 of the stone dragon's size, fell from the sky, falling directly onto the creature's back, pushing it into the ground and breaking several of its bones. The stone dragon roared in pain, but before it could do anything, the riders took the second spear from their backs and charged their runes again before sending them hurtling toward the dragon's neck, aiming right at the open wounds.
BOOMMs.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 540, A Power Above the Limits of Ether.
BOOMMs.
The second volley of explosive spears did the trick, as the stone dragon collapsed to the ground and the light in its eyes faded. Immediately, all the warriors began to cheer as the spellcaster in the sky calmly descended to the ground with an expression of utter exhaustion. Those 3 spells seemed to have drained all the energy in the woman, but it did not erase the fact she managed to unleash spells way above her energy pool. Cain watched it all and had to admit that the performance he witnessed from the magic caster and warriors was impressive. The people's abilities are limited and lack maneuverability, but it seems they can make up for it with equipment. Not to mention that as they rise higher, their range of powers grows exponentially. After witnessing this battle, 2 things were clear to Cain. The path to higher ranks in this place seemed very difficult to achieve, and the domain over cosmic forces was extremely limited. However, as they advanced, those restrictions seemed to weaken, and they could exponentially enhance their power through artifacts and runes, more than what the people of Ether could do. Ether also has rune masters, but none can grant such an upgrade to an individual's battle power. Just activating one powerful rune would normally take the full power of a talented warrior, but that doesn't seem to be the case in this place. Cain was not a rune master, but it seemed that the runes in this place differed from Ether's. Before, Cain had nearly lost all interest in this dimension, as the strength of the people was so weak that he alone could have overruled them all if he reached this place with his body. Of course, he would not have wasted his time since there was no gain in overpowering such a weak civilization, but this display of power changed things. Wanting to prove something, Cain got near the magic caster and put his hands through her head, but she did not detect anything. It seems that even those at her power level cannot detect me. Find more to read at Freeweb Novel. Cain stared at the woman momentarily and focused on her staff and the runes on the warriors before rising into the sky again and heading back to the capital. As he advanced, he saw more displays of great power on his path. Although they were impressive, all the warriors he saw, even those who could fly, were limited in several ways. So far, he had not seen anyone who could reach the power equivalent to a divine ascension master, much less a titan or god. It had already been nearly 2 days of flying when Cain finally caught a glimpse of what seemed to be the capital of the Saint Trinity realm. It was a truly massive city with golden walls and a mystic aura that rivaled that of Eden or Evanite. What drew most of Cain's attention were the massive statues of 3 divine goddesses surrounding the city, all extremely beautiful, seemingly pure, and otherworldly. Just as Cain's eyes were drawn to beautiful status, he turned to the left. They immediately widened as he saw a dark storm in the distance and could feel a sense of danger and even terror. Cain's eyes narrowed, and a sharp light appeared in them as he decided to approach the storm. After an hour, he finally saw it. It was not a storm, but a massive army with dozens of millions of warriors. The bulk of the army was composed of warriors on metallic horses that scorched the ground beneath their hooves. The aura of each of them was not weaker than those he saw fighting the stone dragon, but even more impressive was that they all had at least a rune on their bodies. Among those warriors were hundreds of thousands of people in dark priestly clothes, all chanting strange words that resonated around the ground and sky, generating a dark aura. If that was not all, there were also dozens of thousands of winged figures in the sky, all unleashing waves of immense energy, with some seemingly capable of making the ground shatter and the sky tremble. Cain's eyes widened as he saw the might of such an army. Although he could not measure their power effectively, his instincts told him this was a force that could face any of the 6 main races of Ether head-on. They are doomed. Although Cain had not had time to inspect the capital, by what he had seen of the Trinity Kingdom so far, their military might was around 10% to 15% of the Godslayer humankind empire, and there was no way they could face this power. Of course, Cain did not plan to intervene since even if his real body were present, he would only be sending himself to his death if he confronted such a massive army. He was already thinking of flying away, as he did not know if these people would have the power to detect him. Cain did not know what would happen if someone destroyed this humanoid body formed by his willpower, and was not eager to find out. However, just as he was about to move away, a figure appeared in the sky above the dark army. The figure was a warrior with golden armor and the image of a sun engraved on his armor. He had short black hair, his eyes glowed with golden flames, and a halo of white flames was on the back of his head. Cain did not feel anything from this person, but he saw how the entire dark army froze as he appeared, and they looked at the sky with dread as if they were seeing a monster. The priests began to shout, but Cain was too far away to hear what they were saying. The man's eyes gazed at the dark army with loathing and disdain as he raised his right hand and began to speak in a voice that spread across the earth and sky.
Sun Lord, I summon your power in the name of the Trinity Kingdom. May your flames scorch the enemies in front of me.
As soon as the man finished speaking, the dark storm that covered the army spread apart as a beam of golden, majestic energy fell from the sky into his hand. Cain's eyes widened as he saw how an incredibly immense amount of energy gathered in the man's hand, while wings began to form on his back, and each one made the man's power grow even higher. Finally, 5 wings formed on his back as all the energy in the pillar gathered in the palm of his hand.
Filthy being, burn beneath the might of the Sun Lord.
He gazed at the army that could have faced one of the 6 races of Ether with disdain, before unleashing all that energy into a beam against them. Kane's eyes were full of shock and disbelief as he saw that beam of solar energy falling from the man's hand onto the Dark Army, sundering it in half and killing millions of warriors, including those in the sky, as if they were nothing. The beam had so much power that it penetrated the earth for thousands of meters, scorching the ground and erasing the pollution the Dark Army unleashed. The attack carried on for over 5,000 kilometers, encompassing the entire length of the Dark Army's formation. What monstrous power! Kane was no longer the same young man shocked by the spell of an Atrox god and had faced true titans of the level of Dark Kings. Yet, he was overwhelmed by the power of the man's attack. It was an assault that could have carved an eternal scar in Gaia, capable of obliterating Eden, the Silver City. The might displayed by the man surpassed the limits of Ether, and Kane did not even understand how someone could wield such power. The wings on the man's back faded the next second, and an expression of utter exhaustion appeared on his face as his youthful visage aged. That attack had inflicted significant damage on the Dark Army but did not eradicate it, and there were still many warriors alive. Yet, the man showed only disdain. Even in his weakened state, the power warrior felt no fear toward the remainder of the army. However, suddenly, his eyes narrowed as he focused on the distance, and a sharp light appeared in them. Kane's eyes widened as he realized the man was looking directly at him. He can see me. As soon as that thought emerged in Kane's mind, he sent the intent, and his body dispersed as he left the dimension. Less than a millisecond after Kane vanished, the man appeared in the space where he used to be. A frown appeared on his face as he saw that Kane was gone, but he did not show much concern as he turned back to the Dark Army. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 541, To the Deus Behemoth Empire's Capital, I. Kane awoke inside the sun tree the next second, his entire body soaked in cold sweat, and the shock in his eyes was evident. The level of power he had witnessed was unlike anything he had ever seen, and the scale of destruction was overwhelming. The golden humanoid in the deepest part of Kane's soul saw the distress and how the alter ego began to use its full power to stabilize it. His eyes narrowed as he imagined Kane's shock, and a small smile appeared. Although Apex did not know what Kane had seen on his journey through the dream world, he was sure it must have been a display of might unlike anything that could appear in Ether. Apex had always ingrained in Kane the idea that he should not be complacent with his power, but that was becoming hard to do as Kane advanced so fast and showed a talent, and might that Ether could not even measure anymore. He had already reached the power to face the highest figures of the 6 great races, and it would not be long before he could challenge even those who called themselves titans and gods. How could someone like that not feel entitled to feel superior and complacent with his power? Fortunately, it seemed Apex would not have to worry about that. As for the shock in Kane's heart being too much, Apex was even less worried about that since the golden humanoid could see how, once the shock began to fade, a burning light appeared in the young man's eyes, full of fighting spirit and greed. Explore stories on Freeweb Novel. Kane clenched his fists as a smile appeared on his face. He wanted that power, the might to level an entire continent and destroy millions with a single strike. After a few seconds, Kane began to take deep breaths as he calmed the raging thrill and battle will in his heart. He still did not know how to reach that realm with his real body. Yet, that was not a real problem since there were still a lot of things in Ether that could help in cultivation. Kane calmed his mind and heart but did not forget that person's power. He then went through the messages in the AI chip module and saw files related to the astral bloodline realm and the people that would accompany him. The message was sent to Bylod Kabuto shortly. He analyzed it before waving his hand, opening the sun tree, and emerging the next second. He immediately saw 9 members of the Solis clan waiting for him. All of them are Apotheosis realm masters, and by their age and power, it is clear they are very talented and have immense potential.
Good, you have come out. It is time to leave for the capital.
Lord Kabuto appeared after Cain emerged from the Sun Tree. He did not waste time, and his aura covered all 10 members of the Solis clan as they rose into the sky and flashed toward the capital of the Deus Behemoth Empire. Lord Kabuto had used his sunlight energy to envelop everyone in the group so they could advance at a shocking speed. Still, the capital of the Deus Behemoth Empire was a considerable distance from the sacred home of the clan, so it would take a few minutes to arrive. Of course, Lord Kabuto could reach every part of the Bahamut sector in half a minute if he deployed his full speed and was willing to use his secret techniques, but that would generate too much stress on the people he carried, not to mention there was no need for that. Besides, a few minutes would do good for the team, especially since one had little to no contact with the rest of the warriors. Cain glanced at the rest of the people from the Solis clan who would go into the astral bloodline realm, but had only interacted with Tania before. All the others were also Apotheosis realm masters, yet had vibrant life forces, so there was no one with age above 100 years, and they were still technically considered part of the younger generation. The one who drew most of Cain's attention was a man with sharp golden eyes, antlers emerging from the back of his head, and black hair. He was very handsome, and his body vibrated with power and might, making it clear how much he had advanced in the astral rebirth path of power. What surprised Cain was the similarity between this man and Lord Kabuto. The man seemed to notice Cain's gaze and looked at him for a moment before clasping his hands and nodding.
I am Samuel. It is a pleasure to meet the Sun Avatar.
Although Samuel had higher cultivation and age, the status of the Sun Avatar was not just for show, and in terms of status in the Solis clan, he was only below Lord Kabuto, Kenia, and Lusmia, the 3 divine ascension masters. Cain clasped his hands to the man, and his eyes glowed with red light as he perceived the man's aura. Although he could not perfectly gauge Samuel's power, he seemed to be the strongest of the 9.
The pleasure is mine.
After that, Cain turned to the rest of the people flying by his side. He already analyzed the file with their names, but it would be best if they at least introduced themselves. The rest of the group members noticed the intent in Cain's gaze and began to speak.
We have already met Colonel Lorifer.
Tania, the fierce swordsman, smiled at Cain.
My name is Golka, and this one beside me is Olka.
A man with a bulky body and green hair presented himself and the thin comrade by his side. Although Golka followed the astral rebirth path and Olka the essence evolution path, both were extremely similar, making it clear they were brothers. Cain nodded to the duo. As for the fact that Golka did not address him as Sun Avatar, he had never cared for words and only actions mattered. Besides, they were not in the military.
I am Simia, Sun Avatar.
Shortly after the duo, a young woman saluted Cain. She was just 1 meter and 70 centimeters tall, the smallest of the group, but that did not mean she was the weakest at all.
And I am Lauren, Sun Avatar.
After Simia, another young woman introduced herself. She was taller, nearly 1 meter and 90 centimeters, and there were 2 shields with sharp ends on her back. Cain's eyes narrowed as he saw how similar this woman was to Ka Elder Lusmia, a daughter. Cain did not dwell too much on those thoughts as he turned toward the trio in the back. 2 were at the Flesh Calamity, and the last was at the Fire Tribulation.
I am Zol, Sun Avatar. And I am Korn, Sun Avatar.
The 2 Flesh Calamity masters presented themselves. Zol wielded a massive warhammer, while Khan had a broadsword.
And my name is Pollet, Sun Avatar.
The Fire Tribulation master saluted Cain. He was the oldest of the group, reaching nearly 100 years already, but his aura also seemed to be only second to Samuel. Cain also saluted Pollet before turning toward Samuel.
Who will be the leader of this expedition?
When Cain asked that question, a complicated expression appeared on Samuel's face, as it did on the faces of all the others. None of the 9 doubted Cain's battle power as they had already seen him fight, and despite being a Wave King, he could deploy a battle strength that seemed to be near the late or peak apotheosis stage. However, the leader of an expedition does not always need to be the strongest person. The astral bloodline realm was a very peculiar dimension. Only those below the divine ascension stage could enter, but that was just the beginning of its oddities. Inside were bizarre beasts capable of killing apotheosis realm masters, and if that wasn't enough, constant waves of radiation flooded the dimension. In some areas, the radiation was feeble, and those with the 10 great bloodlines could endure it with little trouble. However, other regions exuded radiation that could destroy their cells, leading to a painful and agonizing death. Since the astral bloodline realm had opened several times in the past, the dangerous areas should have been mapped. Yet, another issue was that space inside the dimension behaved erratically, with new paths forming every time it opened and old ones disappearing, limiting the usefulness of information from the past. Considering all these characteristics, choosing the person in charge of leading their group through those deadly passages was a matter of grave importance.
Originally, we had discussed and agreed that I would take the lead, as I have already internalized all the knowledge regarding the dangers of the astral bloodline realm and developed countermeasures. Of course, since you are the Sun Avatar, you have the authority to take the lead.
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 542, to the Deus Behemoth Empire's capital, Ir.
No need, you can keep the leadership.
Cain immediately shook his head. The Absolute Life Form system had already assessed all the information regarding the astral bloodline realm and generated contingencies for all the problems he might face. However, Zamiel must have all sorts of treasures in his space ring capable of maintaining the group's safety, which Cain did not to mention he knew the people better and could guide them to exploit their might during battle fully. Zamiel and the others smiled as they heard that. They were happy that Cain did not let fame and status go to his head and took the leadership despite not being the most prepared. Lord Kabuto also smiled as he heard that. He was pleased that Cain didn't forcefully take the group's leadership. Although the patriarch of the Solis clan knew the young man's excellent leadership skills, that didn't mean he needed to jump into that position at every chance. After all, a good sword is not the sharpest, but the most useful for the right task, and the most suited for guiding the team into the astral bloodline realm was not Cain, but Zamiel.
Ha, your granduncle is very wise, isn't little Zami?
When Zamiel heard the words of Lord Kabuto, his eyes couldn't help but twitch. He was the great-grandson of Lord Kabuto, so technically, Cain would be his granduncle. However, calling someone who is not even 20 years old
Granduncle.
while you were in your mid-80s was extremely embarrassing. Cain also found it odd but did not say a word and simply remained silent. If they were about to bicker about it, Lord Kabuto would just make a fuss about it, so it was better if he ignored it. Luckily for Cain and Zamiel, that was the right path, as Lord Kabuto did not bring the topic up again, and soon they arrived at the capital of the Deus Behemoth Empire. The Godslayer Humankind Empire had Eden, while the Atrox Immortus race had Evanite, and the capital of the Deus Behemoth Empire went by the name of Amazon. Cain had seen great things on his travels, but his eyes couldn't help but widen as he saw Amazon. Unlike most cities, this one was not made of buildings, but of trees and lacked any sort of walls. But the most crucial part was the fact it was floating in the sky. Amazon was the size of a large island, capable of holding dozens of millions of people, and waves of golden red energy emerged from it. It radiated a unique power that seemed to nurture the bloodline and body of anyone in its proximity. Unlike Eden and Evanite, the Deus Behemoth Empire did not create their capital. According to the records Cain obtained, this floating city appeared thousands of years ago, and the Emperor moved the capital to this place after discovering its unique powers. The most important structure in Amazon was the gate to the astral bloodline realm. Typically, entering the capital of an empire would require all sorts of verification, not to mention that you could not simply move freely and go wherever you wanted. Still, as the patriarch of one of the 10 great bloodlines and a true titan, Lord Kabuto could fly across Amazon without a problem. Cain gazed at the capital of the Deus Behemoth Empire with surprise and admiration. All sorts of structures were built using the trees and rocks around them. Some places used the crown of trees as merchant stores, while others used the caves on small mountains as rooms. It was a display of flawless symbiosis between the land and the people, something humanity failed to achieve in the old world. It did not take long for the group to reach the center of Amazon, and Cain's eyes immediately went to the massive portal forming on the ground. His perception of the law of space was high enough to understand it was a unique passage to another dimension, but that was all he could perceive since the principles behind it were too high for him. The portal was guarded by 10 giant statues, all of them depicting strange beasts. Cain saw a massive red snake, a creature with a lion head and golden wings, an enormous crustacean creature with a humanoid upper body, a gigantic wolf with a sword in its mouth, and a winged feathered snake. These statues represented some of the 10 great bloodlines with whom Cain had already made contact. His eyes immediately were drawn to the other 5, and they were all just as majestic. One of them resembled a massive bipedal bear with wings that seemed to be made of metal blades, while another was a massive eagle-like beast that seemed to carry the power of cold to the extreme. The other 2 were sea creatures, one resembling a massive whale that seemed to generate its own gravitational field, and the other a mighty shark covered in shadows and darkness. Discover exclusive content at FreeWeb Novel. The last one, and also the one that unleashed the mightiest aura, was a tiger with horns and spikes emerging from its back that seemed to have lava instead of blood. Cain's eyes narrowed as he focused on the lava tiger and felt that the aura of this one was much more vivid than that of the other statues. He could only assume it to be the radiation unleashed by the current emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire, who belonged to the Volcano lineage. Although the giant statues were the first to see, Cain's eyes soon turned to those around them. 4 of the statues were already occupied by people, and he had just glanced at the statue of the Zanginis clan when his eyes narrowed as he turned to the one of the Kraken clan. Killing intent. Cain had detected a wave of hatred and killing intent, and it did not take long for him to find the origin as he saw an old man focusing on him with pure hatred and rage. Although Cain had never seen that old man, he noticed the similarity between this one and Natuo, so it was not hard for him to figure out that this one must be the father of the man, and also the one that sent Marcellus to get him shortly after he arrived in the Bahamut sector. Lord Kabuto noticed the sharpness in Cain's gaze, and he was able to locate its origin. That is Nakuo, an elder from the Kraken clan. It seems that he will also be entering the astral bloodline realm. Cain heard Lord Kabuto's voice, and he nodded. He was sure the old man already knew of his problem with the Kraken clan, but this one had not moved against Nakuo. For one, no matter how strong Lord Kabuto was, he could not simply go and kill the elder of another clan. Not to mention, Cain had the power to kill the old man alone. Cain also did not expect the patriarch of the Solis clan to handle his problem and was ready to take care of the man if he had a chance. Even if Nakuo could not harm him, that did not mean he could not go after those he cared for, and he had already learned his lesson of letting danger linger after the events in Blade Mountain. Without further problems, Lord Kabuto guided his group beneath the majestic winged Killen statue. There was still time until the opening, so the people just waited silently until all 10 great bloodlines arrived. Cain turned to the group gathered beneath the blood snake statue. He noticed that while Lord Zagninis was present, neither Prince Kauto nor Desmond were among those set to enter the astral bloodline realm. Prince Kauto, already a divine ascension master, would be rejected by the portal, while Desmond was simply too weak. Unfortunately for the young man from the Zagninis clan, even though he was very talented and could elevate his battle power to the late wave king level, all those entering the realm were apotheosis realm masters, with some capable of nearing the power of a divine ascension master. One could only say that Desmond had bad luck and was too young, as not everyone could be a monster like Cain, capable of deploying apotheosis battle power at the early wave king stage. After exchanging greetings with Lord Zagninis, Cain turned his attention to the group beneath the winged feathered snake and saw Urien. The young woman from the Aeolus clan smiled at Cain and clasped her hands in greeting, which he returned courteously. The rest of the Aeolus clan members followed their leader's example and focused on Cain. All of them had been concentrating on their cultivation to stay at their peak before entering the astral bloodline realm, so they did not attend the sun avatar crowning. Today was their first time seeing the Godslayer human, and there was a meaningful light in their eyes. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 543, Ian. Cain noticed the fighting will in several people from the Aeolus clan, but his attention quickly shifted to those from the Kraken clan. The Kraken clan could become his greatest adversary in the astral bloodline realm. Other than Nakuo, all other members of the Kraken clan entering the dimension were young and full of vibrant vitality and power. The group was led by a man with red hair and blue eyes, covered in a bronze exoskeleton that radiated immense pressure. Of the 9, only the red-haired man raised Cain's awareness, his instincts warning him of the power of this one. Not wanting to draw too much attention, Cain turned to the group to the left of the Kraken clan beneath the Shadow Shock statue. This group was the Umbra clan, characterized by the sharp fin on their arms and legs and known for their assassination skills. Cain's gaze didn't linger on the Umbra clan as he observed 2 groups arriving in the sky. One group included Roderick from the Fenrir clan, whom Cain had encountered during the Sun Avatar crowning. The other group was full of individuals with massive constitutions, each between 2.5 to 3 meters tall, and dark metallic fur over their bodies. That was the Ursa clan. Unlike other clans, none of them wore armor, even the Essence cultivators, showcasing their pride in the defensive power of their bloodline. Shortly after the Ursa and Fenrir clans, 2 more groups arrived. One consisted of tall individuals with massive constitutions, but unlike the Ursa clan, they were armored and positioned themselves beneath the statue of the massive mythical whale. Another group, composed entirely of winged stunning women with a cold aura surrounding their bodies and a freezing bloodline, positioned themselves beneath the ice mythical eagle statue. After the Gravita and Arctic clans arrived, Cain frowned, feeling an overwhelming wave of heat that made him uncomfortable. Cain's body, resilient enough to withstand the magma of nearly all volcanoes in Ether, was unsettled by this intense temperature. He looked up, along with everyone else, as a figure appeared in the sky. It was a middle-aged man with long dark hair, dark gray skin, majestic horns, and armor that seemed to contain revolving magma. That majestic man was Ian, the emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire, patriarch of the Volcano clan, and the strongest Deus Behemoth in all of Ether. Despite containing his aura, the power he unleashed was so massive that it affected space-time, and the radiation he emitted was the highest of everyone present.
We salute the mighty emperor of the Deus Behemoth Empire, Ian Volcano,
shouted everyone present, including Cain. Cain clenched his fists in awe of the man's power. He had witnessed a greater display of power in the dream world, but experiencing things in person and with your own senses had a different feeling. The Deus Behemoth Emperor nodded as he descended from the sky, his gaze narrowing as he looked at Cain. Maintaining composure under such a powerful gaze was challenging, but Cain managed, his eyes glowing with red light. The exchange between them was brief as Ian softly nodded and continued descending. Only after Ian touched the ground did people notice 10 warriors from the Volcano clan who would be entering the astral bloodline realm. All Apotheosis realm masters have powerful auras and vibrant vitalities, yet the Emperor eclipsed their presence. A tense silence fell as all eyes turned towards Lord Ian, waiting for him to speak before 10 warriors from each clan marched into the astral bloodline realm. Once inside, they would be on their own. While there was a tactical agreement to avoid conflict, it was uncertain if this would hold once treasure was involved, especially since some clans already harbored animosity towards each other.
The astral bloodline realm might be a land full of danger and treasure, where greed could cloud your judgment, but remember who you are and what you fight for.
This concise statement, rich with wisdom and insight, was enough to awaken all the younger generation members, allowing them to consider whether killing their brothers and sisters in the pursuit of wealth was worth it.
Goes.
As soon as Ian gave the signal, the fighting will of all the people burst forth as they flashed into the portal. The portal was large enough to allow all groups to enter simultaneously. The moment Cain touched the portal, he felt a great force take control of his body, and he could do nothing but follow along. Previously, when Cain went through a portal or teleportation formation, he only felt the power of space but understood almost nothing. However, things were different now that his understanding of the law of space was, at the extreme basic understanding. Cain was still unable to fully understand the power behind the portal, but he knew his body was not being sent across a great distance, but barely moving from his position. The astral bloodline realm was located in the same place as Amazon, a parallel dimension. A parallel dimension is a dimension that occupies the same space as the central plane of existence that held ether, but that possesses a different vibrational frequency, allowing the superposition of two things. As Cain considered this, the darkness faded, and he found himself in the ceiling of what could only be described as a gray cylinder dozens of thousands of kilometers tall and with a length his supernatural sense could not perceive. So this is the Gray Road. Majestic. Cain felt awe and wonder at the marvelous sight, but instantly his eyes grew sharp as he saw his body falling. If that was all, there would be no problem, but hundreds of white skeletal monsters were on the ground of the Gargantuan Road. These creatures had all sorts of strange bestial appearances, and there was not a single organ inside their bodies, not even a brain, yet their eyes glowed with light very similar to that which appeared in the members of the sacred race as they unleashed their ego waves.
The
The monsters, covered in dust just a second ago, roared as they detected the life forms falling from the sky, and they all flew toward them with nothing but pure killing intent in their eyes. Cain's eyes widened as he made his ego wave burst, and he frowned as he noticed how restrictive it was in its rage. Normally, his red force field could extend for 1,000 kilometers, but now it covered only 500 meters. Although that was trouble, Cain was not worried since he had another scanning force field that, while it might not have the range of his ego wave, was much more powerful. System, display the full power of the pseudo-multidimensional scan force field. Cain expected to have a complete scan of 250 kilometers around him, but he was shocked to hear the absolute life form system's response. An unknown power is restricting the pseudo-multidimensional scan force field. Current range, 1,000 meters. Cain was surprised to hear that the dimension could hinder the AI chip module, despite the capabilities of this one having evolved to a realm that could be considered the peak of ether. Your journey continues at Freeweb Novel. This place is definitely something different. It will not be of much help, but it will still grant me a greater range of control than my ego wave. All those thoughts crossed Cain's mind in a second as he took out Slaughter and made his body glow with sunlight energy as the power of the law of blood and law of space burst. He did not wait for the skeletal beasts to surround him and flashed forward. Cain was not alone. All the other Deus behemoths who appeared alongside him in the ceiling of the Gray Road also made their power burst. The people of the Solis clan generated a potent burst of sunlight energy that scorched the air while simultaneously giving them supernatural speed. At the same time, those from the Zanginis clan either made their bodies burst with blood energy or conjured powerful spells using blood. Those from the Volcano clan unleashed bursts of flames that ignited the air, while the women of the Arctic clan did the opposite, generating a cold field that froze the particles of oxygen. The warriors from the Gravita clan banded together as they unleashed a gravitational field and dived toward the skeletal monsters, while the chestbear fighters from the Ursa clan lunged toward all the monsters in their path, seemingly intending to use their own bodies as battering rams. The people from the Kraken clan followed a similar path to those of the Gravitas clan as they all fused their energy, generating what seemed to be a wave of astral and essence wave in the form of a tsunami capable of crushing pressure. While the people from the Umbra clan split, all of them used strange forces that faded their presence. All the members of the Fenrir clan took different types of swords as they used the power of sword force and space energy to blast the enemies. Not far from them, the people from the Aeolus clan unleashed wind vortices that crushed and shattered all the skeletal monsters in their path. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 544, 100 vs 100,000. Cain had taken the lead and did not stay with the rest of the people of the Solis clan, not because he thought he could face the Horde by himself, but because his next attack would have a massive range and he needed to be alone. Streams of blood energy and essence wave gathered in Slaughter as Cain summoned the blood space vortex, and soon the revolving sphere of destructive energy appeared in his sword. The attack was strong, but Cain went the next step as his eyes began to glow, and he summoned the Sundering Concept.
Shatter.
Cain sent the gargantuan sphere of blood energy and spatial energy forward, and now that it was enhanced by the sundering concept, every fiber of energy in it was reinforced with a force that sought to sunder all things in its path.
BOOO.
A massive explosion echoed across the road as the blood space vortex shattered all the skeletal monsters rising toward the Solis clan and carried all the way to the ground, where it exploded, leaving an empty zone nearly 400 meters wide. All the Deus behemoths present turned to the blast as they saw the level of destructive power. Roderick and Urian could not help but widen their eyes as they saw the power behind that attack. Both of them had fought Cain before and believed they had a good measure of the young man's power, but they were wrong. Although Cain's talent in the essence evolution path of power and the astral rebirth path of power was incredibly high, it had always been his ego eternal path of power, which allowed him to jump entire ranks. After all, Cain's ego wave matched that of a peak apotheosis master and could enhance his energy pool. Not to mention he controlled the power sundering concepts and had unique skills such as radiance of life and radiance of power. Cain did not have time to care about the sight of the others as he flashed at full speed toward the ground and immediately waved his hand, sending out the 9 space spheres before flooding the air with his blood energy and essence wave, generating a Nexus blood domain. The ground flooded with blood as Cain's ego wave fused into the domain, improving the power of this one, reaching the range and power of all his skills in it. The first step in the astral bloodline realm was facing the horde of skeletal creatures. Running from them was not a wise choice, as they would follow non-stop, and facing them in radioactive areas or zones full of space fluctuations would be dangerous. As soon as Cain landed on the surface, his eyes narrowed since hundreds of skeletal monsters flashed toward him, full of murderous intent and without regard for their lives. Fortunately for Cain, before the beasts could even approach him, they were destroyed by beams of sunlight energy, and the next second, glowing warriors landed on the ground, adopting a defensive formation around him. Zamiel did a great job guiding the warriors of the Solis clan. They adopted a formation with Cain at the center, using the power of the domain to improve their fighting capability. Although the groups had shattered dozens of skeletal creatures, many more marched toward them. But before the Solis clan could unleash a new wave of attacks, warriors covered in blood energy descended from the sky and blasted the monsters to pieces. Zamiel was surprised to see the warriors of the Zanguinis clan immediately grouping with them. Even if their clans were allies, this place incited greed, so it was normal for people to maintain a certain distance. His eyes narrowed as he focused on the leader of the Zanguinis clan, a man with a youthful appearance towering nearly 2 meters tall and a bulging constitution. The man's name was Law, and like Zamiel, he was the grandson of the patriarch of the clan. Just as Zamiel wondered about the man's purpose, he saw him focused on Cain, and the intent in his eyes was similar to that of a soldier waiting for orders. Zamiel had faced Law from a very young age, so he was surprised to see that behavior from the stubborn and arrogant man. Cain also noticed the look in the man's eyes but did not waste time, and immediately a battle formation appeared in his mind.
The Solis clan will maintain the ground, while the Zanguinis clan will protect the sky. Adopt a dome formation using the Nexus blood domain as the core. Each group will follow the guide from their respective leaders.
Zamiel and Law smiled as they heard those words. Cain's battle tactic allowed both groups to help themselves while maintaining their dynamic. Although one might think separating them between ground and air was wrong, mixing them would have affected each clan's tempo. Immediately, the people of the Solis clan adopted a pentagram formation around Cain, while the Zanguinis clan covered the air. Experience more content on Freeweb Novel. The law of blood did not affect the skeletal creatures, but the law of space hindered their movements, making them slower and easier to destroy. Not only that, those of the Zanguinis clan were actually enhanced by being inside the domain, as their spells and skills that used the power of blood were enhanced.
Boom. 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 Boom.
Dozens of explosions echoed every second inside the domain as the warriors from the Solis clan and the Zanguinis clan destroyed the skeletal creatures. Cain was in the center of the Nexus blood domain as the destruction raged around him. He was not making a move, but no one would blame him since he had already helped secure the ground, and the domain was helping them, so he more than did his part. Maintaining a domain was not easy, so it would be fine if he only concentrated on that. Kane's ego wave made keeping the domain in place very straightforward, and the reason he was not making a move was that his senses were adapting to the Hod's marching toward them. Finally, Kane's eyes began to glow with golden light, and he took a step forward, vanishing. Just as Kane did that, 4 skeletal creatures were about to lunge toward a member of the Solis clan, forcing this one to pull back when Kane appeared in front of them and performed a quantum laceration that blasted them to pieces. Before the member of the Solis clan could even process Kane's appearance, he had already vanished, appearing in the sky and sending another blast of blood energy at skeletal creatures that attempted to lunge toward an essence evolution cultivator from the Zanginis clan. Kane had just destroyed them when he once again waved slaughter. The woman from the Zanginis clan that Kane had just helped was confused as no power emerged from the weapon. But the next instant, she heard a blast in the distance and saw how a small explosion of blood energy appeared at the other end of the Nexu blood domain. Kane knew every move the skeletal creatures made moments before they did it. The power of the flow allowed him to predict where he was most needed, and he used spatial phase to appear there or warp strike to attack from a distance. The people from the Zanginis clan and the Solis clan could not help but smile as they saw how Kane was able to appear just at the right time, diminishing the pressure they faced from the horde of skeletal creatures and allowing them to unleash their power more freely. Although all of the clans could face the horde of skeletal creatures, the Solis clan and Zanginis clan did not have to overexert themselves at all, and up to the moment, none of them received even a small wound. Kane's eyes did not stop glowing as the power of the flow guided his attacks. Fighting this way and maintaining a domain in place required a massive amount of energy. But that was not really a problem as the Gluttony module kept consuming the Draco Lightning Frog Corpse and flooded his evolution core with life wave that his essence star automatically devoured before flooding his meridians with essence wave. As long as Kane did not use attacks that consumed too much of his energy too fast, he could continue fighting for hours, as the Gluttony module would help him non-stop with his energy needs. Of course, people also noticed how Kane's energy pool seemed to have no end, but they accepted it as one of the many strange things around the monster genius. The explosion lasted for a total of 11 hours until, finally, silence reigned. The only things left were the 99 Deus behemoths, 1 Godslayer human, and broken pieces of skeletal creatures. Finally, the 100 warriors that crossed through the portal in Amazon had destroyed the hundreds of thousands of monsters that had awoken from their hibernation with the sole purpose of killing them. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 545, Taking the Corpses. Although fighting for 11 straight hours was strenuous, members of the Deus Behemoth race had a racial advantage in terms of stamina, so despite being tired, they were still fine. Many of them turned to Kane as they expected the young man to be completely exhausted, as they saw how he maintained his domain for the entire 11 hours while fighting. Still, to everybody's surprise, he looked better than all the others. Kane was not faking it, as he really was fine. No one here had an ego wave at the third realm, so they could not detect his astral wave even if he did not use his red mask. His dual cultivation would be evident if he used astral wave for spells, but no one noticed how he circulated a small amount across his body from time to keep his stamina. The young monster from the Godslayer humankind empire just became more and more mysterious to the Deus Behemoths, but no one had time for those thoughts since now that they defeated the Hods, it was time to take the rewards. The Deus Behemoths began to search around the corpses, ignoring the bones as they all went to the skulls to look inside them. The core component behind those skeletal creatures was a small crystal, which either had a milky sky-blue force known as Starworm's essence or a nebulous dark purple energy called Starworm's blood. The former was useful for essence cultivators as their essence star could consume it, improving their energy pool and purity. At the same time, Astral cultivators could use the latter to enhance their astral blood saturation. Starworm's essence and Starworm's blood were the most common treasures inside the astral bloodline realm, and while the amount found inside the gems of the skeletal creatures was meager, they were still extremely valuable. Consuming them in massive quantities could greatly help even geniuses with flawless foundations. The division of these treasures was also one of the reasons why all groups worked separately, as none wanted to bicker with others for them. Samuel and Law glanced at each other as they tried to decide how to split the gems with Starworm's essence and Starworm's blood. Although both sides killed around the same amount of skeletal creatures, Kane's work could compare with that of at least 3 Apotheosis Realm Masters, and since he was part of the Solis clan, they should get more.
Divide half and halves.
Kane noticed the gaze of the duo, and before they could even open their mouths, he settled the problem. Samuel sighed as he would have liked to keep more of the treasures, but since Kane spoke, there was little he could say. Law's smile widened as he was happy with an equal division of the treasure. With that settled, Kane began to search the broken skulls and take the gems like the others, but his focus was on the shattered skeletons. All the Deus behemoths simply threw the broken bones to the side since they were useless, but that might not be the case for him. Kane sent one of the pieces to his demonic devourer dimension, and a small smile appeared on his face as the sky flame managed to consume it, taking a small amount of Starworm's essence. Although most of the energy was concentrated in the gem inside their skulls, there was still a significant amount in the skeleton of the monsters. It was just that all the others found it impossible to extract it from the broken pieces. Once he knew he was right, Kane continued working like the others, taking the gems and pushing the skeletons to the side. The harvesting process lasted nearly an hour, and that was because people used all kinds of methods and spells to take several gems at the same time. If they went one by one, it would have taken more time than the fight. After the harvesting, all the Deus behemoths adopted meditative positions as they replenished their energy. This 11th hour fight against hundreds of thousands of skeletal beasts was the easiest part of the astral bloodline realm. From this point forward, it was that the troubles began. The Grey Road had hundreds of paths, but knowing where each would lead you was nearly impossible. You had to take one and hope to find clues that could lead you to one of the 6 chambers. The 6 chambers are special locations inside the astral bloodline realm. Each contained unique cultivation grounds that could help astral cultivators and essence cultivators improve their foundation, energy pools quality and quantity, and refine their meridians or bodies. Every group wanted to reach a chamber, but it was impossible to know what path would take you there since there were distortions in space every time the astral bloodline realm opened. Also, deadly radiation areas could pop up at any moment, and there were even stronger monsters than the skeletal creatures guarding each of the chambers. And if all that was not enough, some chambers had unique defensive structures that could stop the advance of even divine ascension masters. Ultimately, the best path was to take a route and find clues about where it would take you from notes of previous experiences and advance from there. It was not easy nor fast, but luckily, the astral bloodline realm would last several months open. After 3 hours, the people from the Volcano clan rose from the ground and flashed down one of the routes, and it didn't take long for those from the Gravita clan to do the same. One by one, the warriors from the different clans rose from the ground as they had replenished their strength and advanced. The warriors from the Solis clan and Zangini's clan had also replenished their strength. They had finished before the others since none suffered severe wounds, but they did not move as Kane's eyes closed, and he did not seem to wake up from his meditation. Samuel and Law saw how the other clans were advancing while they remained behind, although being first did not mean they would advance faster in this place. Being lost was not good either, but neither dared to disturb Kane's meditation. It did not take long for all 8 clans to have left the area, and only then did Kane open his eyes. He saw that only the people from the Solis clan and Zangini's clan were left, so he did not hesitate before using the power of the Law of Space, taking control of the broken bones left by the skeletal creatures and sending them into his demonic devourer dimension. Although the energy in an entire corpse was less than 1/5 of the one contained in the gems, he obtained hundreds of tons of broken bones. He had waited since he did not want to bicker about him taking the corpses that belonged to others. Even if the broken bones were trash, If the other clans found out they had value for Cain, they would not have simply given it to him. Samuel and Law immediately understood why Cain waited, but they could not help but show a confused expression as they did not understand why the Godslayer human wanted the skeletons. Experience new stories on Freeweb Novel. Cain noticed the confusion in their eyes, but he was not going to reveal his secret, and instead of telling a lie, he just changed the subject and focused on Law.
I assume that Lord Zanguinis told you to follow my lead. Yes, great-grandfather said we should follow you. We were supposed to be lucky following your guide and that you will treat us fairly.
Law did not bother to hide it and immediately revealed the information. Of course, no one forced him to oblige since Lord Zanguinis had little influence in this place, but he trusted the old man, and so far, Cain's had been helpful.
I see. If Samuel doesn't have a problem, we could advance together and divide the resources according to meritocracy. In case of conflict, I will act as the judge. There is no problem, son Avatar.
Samuel immediately clasped his hands. Two groups working together could lead to many troubles in a place full of treasure, but with Cain acting as the intermediary, both sides trusted that he would be fair. Since the leaders decided to work together, the Apotheosis Realm masters from both sides smiled at each other. Besides, the Zanguinis clan and Solis clan had a long friendship, so it was easy for them to cooperate. Cain nodded, and it was time to choose a route. Usually, overthinking had little use since they could only follow a path and test their luck. If it was a dead end, they could only return to the main route and try again, but that was not true for Cain. A golden light appeared in Cain's eyes as he focused on one of the side paths in the grey road.
I assume that each chamber unleashes a massive amount of energy, right?
Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 546, Pool of Purity.
I assume that each chamber contains an overwhelming amount of energy, right?
Samuel and Law turned towards Cain as they heard his words and noticed his eyes glowing with golden light.
Yes, son Avatar. Each of the 6 chambers contains a cultivation ground with immense energy waves, but it is impossible to detect them from our location.
Cain turned toward Samuel as he heard that, and realized only he could see the potent energy frequency coming from the route he was focusing on.
We should take that route. How we handle the troubles in our path will be up to you too.
Samuel and Law focused on the route that Cain had just signaled. Neither of them felt anything special, but since that path was just as good as any other, they nodded and guided the warriors from the Solis clan and Zanguinis clan in. Cain was in the middle of the group along with the other essence cultivators and flanked by astral cultivators since he was supposed to have a weak body. The group had advanced for an hour, dodging dangerous zones of radiation bursts and keeping a straight path. Samuel and Law were in the lead as both were astral cultivators and had the strongest bodies. They had just turned to the left when their eyes widened as they saw hundreds of skeletal monsters covered by black necrotic tissues. Although these monsters were much more powerful than the normal skeletal creatures, seeing them made a smile appear on Samuel and Law's faces since these creatures were called filth monsters and were near one of the 6 chambers. All the warriors from the Zanguinis clan and Solis clan glanced at Cain as they couldn't help but wonder how he figured out the right path. However, those questions could be answered later as the filth monsters noticed their presence and attacked. The filth monsters roared as they charged toward the warriors from the Solis clan and Zanguinis clan. Not only were they faster and stronger than the skeletal creatures, but every inch of their bodies was covered in a deadly substance, and the slightest wounds could infect their bodies with all sorts of poisons and toxins. Cain acted immediately, unleashing 9 spatial spheres and deploying the Blood Nexus domain, while the members of the Zanguinis clan and Solis clan adopted battle formations. Since the creatures would attack them blindly, letting them enter the domain and use their formation to improve their battle power was better. Explosions reigned as the warriors from the Zanguinis clan and Solis clan destroyed the filth monsters. Cain carried on the same function as in the last battle, using the flow to predict the movement of the horde and intercept them before they could do any damage. Despite being stronger than the skeletal creatures, these were fewer in number, so in less than 15 minutes, all of them were destroyed. Everyone inspected the skulls of the filth monsters they killed and took the gems. Cain also took only the gems from the monsters he killed, despite his domain having helped, which was why no one said a word when he took the corpses for himself. His smile widened as he felt these broken corpses had more Starworm's essence and Starworm's blood than the skeletal creatures. Theia was also hazardous and toxic phos, but the Sky Flame was able to consume it and transform it into energy for his body. The group advanced for 15 more minutes until they suddenly found a crossroad. Zamiel and Law looked at both paths, and normally at this point, they would go through the records of previous travels to figure out the most likely route to the chamber, but now they just turned to Cain. Cain's eyes glowed with golden light as he used the flow again before pointing to the right. The group followed the route, and smiles appeared on the Solis clan and Zangini's clan members as they saw a new horde of filth monsters appear. It was clear now to Zamiel and Law that it was not just luck, and Cain had a way of figuring out the route to the chamber. Although they were curious, neither asked and were just happy to have the young man in their group. The fate of this horde of filth monsters was not different from the last one. They were all destroyed in less than an hour before the group advanced. They flew for a little over 4 hours, facing 6 crossroads and destroying another 7 hordes before finally seeing a pale red light ahead. Zamiel and Law couldn't help but smile as they increased their speed and finally reached what seemed to be a massive room. It was a vast, organic cavern with walls that had a textured appearance similar to tissue, illuminated in captivating hues of deep reds and purples. Dominating the center of this chamber was a serene, crystal-clear pool of water that radiated a gentle, purifying light. When the warriors from the Zangini's clan and Solis clan saw that pool, they could barely resist the temptation to jump into it. Cain did not blame them, as he was just as thrilled to see that pool. This chamber went by the name of Pool of Purity, and the name of the liquid inside was the Elixir of Stellar Purity. It is a liquid that detoxifies and fortifies one's internal organs, enhancing overall health and longevity. The purifying properties were so strong that they could not only disintegrate impurities, but also harm you. However, there was no fear in any of the warriors from the Solis clan and Zangini's clan, as they were more than eager to jump in.
Tania, Golka, and Olka, you will take the first turn guarding the entrance. Kino, Darka, and Cool, you will accompany them.
Zamiel and Law immediately named 6 of the cultivators to stand guard. Once inside the Pool of Purity, they would be too busy cultivating to look out for threats, so some needed to be alert. Stay updated through Freeweb Novel. Although those 6 wanted to jump into the pool just like the others, none made a sound, and all accepted the responsibility. Besides, you could only stay a limited amount of time inside the pool before leaving, or else the Elixir of Stellar Purity could harm your body. Since the lookouts were decided, all the warriors removed their armor and were left in little clothes as they submerged into the Pool of Purity. Cain did the same, and immediately his eyes widened as he felt the potent purging energy of the liquid coursing through his flesh, blood, and meridians, searching for the tiniest amount of pollution or filth to burn it. After less than 3 minutes, a black fog began to emerge from the bodies of some of the warriors. These were the impurities in their bodies. The more impurities, the easier it would be for the liquid to locate and expel it. Zamiel and Law showed their great foundation since it took nearly 10 minutes for a black fog to emerge from their bodies. However, the duo couldn't help but show a complicated smile when they saw that it took nearly half an hour for the black fog to emerge from Cain. It was very thin, showing how little pollution was inside his body. Cain did not notice the looks on the other people's faces, as he was too engrossed in the power of the Elixir of Stellar Purity, removing the impurities from his body and energy pools. Although he had constantly tempered his astral wave and essence star, there was bound to be some pollution in all the treasures he consumed to improve his cultivation. The fact that Cain used only treasures at least 2 tiers above his rank helped diminish that pollution to the slightest, but did not erase it. As for why the others did not do it, not every wave champion could consume high-quality wave crystals like candy, since those were energy cores normally used by Apotheosis Realm Masters. As the Elixir of Stellar Purity removed what little impurities were left in his body, Cain focused on the demonic devourer dimension. He saw two massive spheres of milky sky blue and nebulous dark purple energy. That was the starworm's essence, and starworm's blood the sky flame managed to extract from the hundreds of thousands of corpses of skeletal monsters. It is nearly 30 times the amount I could get from the gems, and the sky flame is still consuming the filth monsters. Cain controlled his thrill and calmed his heart as he divided his mind into two trains of thought, one focusing on revolving the power of the elixir of stellar purity across his body. At the same time, he took control of the starworm's essence and starworm's blood in the demonic devourer dimension. He sent the milky sky blue energy into the evolution core, where the essence star voraciously devoured it. Cain also sent the nebulous dark purple power through his veins, improving the rate at which his blood cells carried on with the metamorphosis. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 547, 50% Astral Blood Saturation. 5 days passed before the first of the warriors who had submerged in the purity pool emerged. She was a water tribulation apotheosis master from the Zanginis clan, her face showing exhaustion but not diminishing her thrilling smile. The power of the elixir of stellar purity had eliminated a significant amount of pollution in her body, improving the state of her essence star and the strength of her essence wave. The woman, noticing she was the first to emerge, didn't give it much importance. She simply went to the pool entrance and nodded to a man from the Zanginis clan, indicating she would continue with the vigilance.
Kino, it's your turn. Hahoha, thanks Amila.
Kino, the flesh calamity master from the Zanginis clan, smiled as he thanked the woman and removed his armor before jumping into the pool of purity. The rest of the gods didn't show much concern that they still had to remain vigilant, confident that more people would soon emerge.
Thumpy.
As expected, less than 5 minutes after Amila emerged, another figure flew out of the pool of purity. This time, it was a member of the Solis clan, none other than Lauren, whom Cain suspected to be Lord Lusmia's daughter. Lauren immediately moved to the entrance of the pool of purity and stared at Tania.
Sister Tania, you can go in. Great.
Tania, the fierce woman who had faced Cain during the Sun Avatar crowning, smiled at Lauren before removing her armor and jumping into the pool of purity the next second. By the end of the day, all 6 gods stationed by Zamuel and Law at the beginning were replaced, and it didn't take long for many others to join them. The elixir of stellar purity had an extremely potent purifying effect. The more impurities one had, the stronger its potency in the body. This was beneficial, but the problem was that the liquid put immense stress on the body and meridians, so breaks were necessary to avoid injury. 4 days after Amila exited, Zamuel and Law also emerged from the pool of purity. The duo's robust foundations meant the potency of the elixir of stellar purity in their bodies and meridians wasn't too strong, allowing them to last nearly twice as long as the others. Although Zamuel and Law were happy with their progress and endurance, they couldn't help but display a complicated smile as they saw Cain still at the bottom of the pool of purity, showing no sign of needing to emerge soon. The duo could only accept that their foundation couldn't compare with that of the monster from the Godslayer human race and went to the gate of the pool of purity. Shortly after Zamuel and Law emerged, Amalia regained enough strength to endure a new cycle inside the pool of purity. Thus, the Solis clan and Zanginis clan warriors trained using the pool of purity for over a month. All of them used the elixir of stellar purity to temper their flesh, blood, meridians, and energy pool, erasing the pollution inside. Since they were constantly rotated, everybody guarded the gate to the pool of purity at least twice, except for Cain, who had yet to emerge once. It was the 33rd day when Zamuel and Law emerged from the pool of purity for the 3rd time. The power of the elixir of stellar energy was no longer helpful to them, and they returned with the rest of the warriors. All 19 of them had utilized the power of the pool of purity to the maximum of their capacities, and it was time to move on. However, one had yet to emerge. The warriors of the Zanginis and Solis clans saw that Cain continued to use the power of the waters to remove impurities in his body. Cain seemed to mobilize the elixir of stellar purity much more effectively than them, so despite the pollution on his body being much lower, he was taking longer to emerge. Since Cain had yet to emerge, neither of the two clans could leave. Luckily, they didn't have to wait long, as by the start of the 34th day, Cain opened his eyes and emerged from the pool of purity. Cain's skin was clearer than marble, and his entire body glowed with an air of purity as if he were immaculate. His essence wave revolved around his meridians with overwhelming speed and power. If before his energy resembled horses, now they were like dragons. The members of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan gazed at Cain with awe. The shock would be even greater if they knew his astral wave was just as pure, not to mention that the wanton consumption of starworm blood had a majestic effect on his astral blood metamorphosis. System, scan me. Cain noticed that everyone was ready to move, but was eager to see the effect of such wondrous cultivation ground, so he commanded the absolute life form system to scan him. Scanning vessel. Scan of vessel completed. Name, Cain Lorifa. Race, Godslayer humankind. Path of power, astral rebirth early wave king, essence evolution early wave king. Lineage, Solis lineage, maximum purity. Wave talent, peak tier 9, peak tier 9. Stats. Strength, 95.1, 109.2. Agility, 56.2, 65.2. Vitality, 112.2, 124.6. Astral wave, 69.2, 83.2. Essence wave, 76.4, 91.2. Blood energy, astral, 134.3, 154.2. Blood energy, essence, 106.4, 123.6. Astral blood saturation, 50% completion. Main law mastery, law of blood, deep law fragmentation. Your journey continues at Freeweb novel. Secondary law mastery, law of space, extreme basic understanding. Note, wave virus inside the vessel enhanced wave talent by 28.1%. Cain was ecstatic when he saw his stats and the power of his body. The immense upgrade in his cultivation base in both the essence evolution and astral rebirth paths of power. It had been less than 2 months since his evolution to Wave King, but the consumption of tons of Starworm's essence and Starworm's blood had helped his energy pool push to the peak of the early stage, and it wouldn't be long before he reached the middle stage. However, Cain's astral blood saturation excited him most, having reached the 50% mark. That meant that if Cain unleashed his astral cultivation, he could set the energy inside his blood cells ablaze, exponentially improving his defensive and offensive capabilities. Although there was no enhancement in his law mastery, Cain could feel how his understanding of the law of blood neared the extreme law fragmentation. As for the law of space, he was already one step into the law fragmentation realm, and it was just a matter of time before he achieved that incredible feat. The law of space at the law fragmentation realm before 20. I bet that's a stunt not even those from the Fenrir clan can achieve. Cain allowed himself a few moments to feel proud, but did not get over his head. After all, it might be true that he could be the greatest genius in Ether, but that mattered very little in realms where a single person could unleash a beam capable of severing half a continent. The battle between the Winged Man and the Dark Army was still clear in Cain's mind, and he constantly reminded himself of it as an excellent tool to keep his arrogance in check. Not wanting to keep the others waiting for too long, he flashed toward the group with the Zangini's clan and Solis clan members.
It is time to move on.
Zamuel and Law nodded as they guided the group back to the Grey Road. As for the fact they had to wait for him, no one said a word. After all, it was not too long, and had it not been for Cain's guidance, they would have wasted much more time finding one of the chambers. The path back was straightforward. Luckily, they did not find any monsters as they had cleared all of them. That did not mean that people who traveled back to the pool of purity would not face dangers, since dozens of paths intersected and led to each of the chambers. Not to mention that soon, the pollution that emerged from all the warriors from the Solis clan and Zangini's clan would fuse with the energy of the astral bloodline realm and give birth to new filth monsters. After a few hours, Kane and the others managed to reach the Grey Road, and at this point, Samuel and Law turned to the Godslayer human in silence. They were not alone since everyone in the group did the same, hoping Kane could lead them again to another of the chambers. Kane noticed their looks, and his eyes began to glow as he activated the power of the flow, trying to detect the vibrational frequencies of the energy in the astral bloodline realm. He focused on all the paths that were near them, but none of them showed anything special.
Let's move forward.
Samuel and Law nodded as they guided the group deeper into the Grey Road while Kane focused on all the paths, trying to detect if any of them had a potent energy fluctuation or were just dead ends. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 548, Breath of Cosmos Chamber. The group continued moving for nearly 3 hours, but Kane found nothing. Just as Samuel was about to suggest taking a random path, Kane's eyes narrowed.
There it.
As soon as they heard those words, the warriors of the Zanginis clan and Solis clan's eyes burst with fighting will. Samuel and Law kept their focus, as there was no guarantee the path was right, but less than 30 minutes in, smiles appeared on their faces. What the Duke saw was a horde of monsters similar to the Filth Monster. However, unlike those near the Pool of Purity with filthy necrotic connective tissues holding their bones together, these were encompassed in a thick grey fog.
Gas monsters.
Samuel shouted with a smile, knowing these creatures roamed the roads leading to one of the 6 chambers named Breath of Cosmos. Although the Solis clan and Zanginis clan members were excited to realize they were on a path to one of the 6 chambers, they immediately adopted serious stances, sealing their paws and generating a membrane around their bodies using their energy. Stay tuned to Freeweb Novel. Gas monsters were not only stronger than skeletal monsters, but they unleashed a pungent airborne substance that could invade the bodies of living beings, destroying their lungs and poisoning them. Kane did not hesitate before waving his hand, unleashing the 9 spheres of space and forming the blood nexus domain, filling the ground with blood and covering the air with blood energy. Samuel and Law guided the group to form a battle formation inside the domain as they faced the incoming horde. The gas monsters marched toward the living warriors, full of killing intent, and with them came a grey miasma that poisoned the air. Luckily, as soon as they entered the domain, the pressure generated by the law of space repelled the miasma. The warriors from the Solis clan and Zanginis clan smiled as they saw that the blood nexus domain managed to repel the strongest tool of the gas monsters. Without wasting time, they attacked with all they had. Kane kept the domain in place as he flashed toward a group of gas monsters that was making its way toward one of the essence cultivators from the Solis clan. He appeared before them and waved slaughter, generating a rift in space and unleashing an explosion of blood energy. Awesome! That thought appeared in Kane's mind as he felt how fast his essence wave coursed through his body and how powerful his spells were now that a completely purified force fueled them. The higher the purity of the fuel, the more power it would release upon ignition. This thermodynamic truth was just as valid for spells and skills. Although thrilled by the speed and power of his spells, Kane remained focused. After bursting those gas monsters to pieces, he vanished only to appear on the ceiling of the blood nexus domain and destroy the incoming monsters. The group took nearly an hour to take care of this horde of gas monsters. Once they were done, they searched inside their skulls and dug out the gems before Kane made all those broken pieces of bones covered in poisonous fog disappear. The warriors from the Solis clan and Zanginis clan were all curious about what Kane would do with them, but everyone had their secrets, so they did not bother the Godslayer human with questions and just moved forward. 10 minutes later, a crossroad appeared, but Kane could guide them to the right path, and it didn't take long for them to find another horde of gas monsters. Like before, the group relied on Kane's blood nexus domain to neutralize their miasma abilities before taking them down. After nearly 10 hours of fighting and killing dozens of thousands of gas monsters, the group saw a nebulous light at the end of a tunnel. The next moment, they found themselves in a massive chamber hundreds of kilometers wide and long. The walls were covered in a strange substance that glowed with nebulous light like a starry sky, and in the middle of the chamber was a massive bifurcation. The breath of Cosmos chamber was visually stunning, but what truly mattered for the Solis clan and Zangini's clan warriors was the starry, nervous gas that flooded the chamber. The name of the gaseous substance that covered the breath of Cosmos chamber was Essence Astral Air. It was able to reinvigorate warriors and improve the oxygen in their blood and tissues, helping them recover from all wounds and filling them with energy. However, their main goal was to flood the evolution car, where they would assimilate into the Essence Star. Since that was the case, it was no wonder that the Essence cultivators from the Zangini's clan and Solis clan would be the happiest. Zamuel and Law were about to distribute the guarding positions when their eyes narrowed. Cain noticed the look in the duo's eyes and immediately noticed the reason as he turned to the side. The trio looked to a different path from the one they used to reach this place, and the next second, a group of 10 beautiful women with cold energy covering their bodies emerged from there. Cain's eyes narrowed as he saw the warriors from the Arctic clan emerge. He did not look down on them just because they were all women. For one, the Arctic bloodline only manifested in women, and each of the 10 that arrived was a warrior capable of leveling cities with their bare hands. Tension presented itself as the leader of the Arctic clan stared at Zamuel and Law. Each of them was just as powerful as her, so if a battle arose, it would be a problem. She was extremely beautiful, with shining blue hair and a cold aura. Her eyes were crystal blue, matching the robe covering her figure, and did not distract from her crystal wings.
The amount of Essence Astral Air is more than enough for all of us. I don't see a reason why we should not share.
Zamuel and Law looked at each other for a moment before turning toward Cain. Even though both led their groups during the battles, it was Cain who led them to the chambers, and he was also the one with the highest authority granted by the patriarchs of both clans. Sun Avatar, how should we proceed? Although we could defeat Amara and the rest of the women of the Arctic clan, it would not be an easy fight, and there is indeed more than enough essence air for all of us. Cain stared at the woman for a moment before nodding to the duo. There was no reason to fight when there was no benefit and only downsides.
We agree to share the chamber with you, Amara.
Zamuel nodded to Amara as the warriors from the Solis clan and Zangini's clan went to the right side of the breath of Cosmos chamber. Amara's eyes narrowed as she noticed how Zamuel and Law behaved around Cain. She had heard about the Godslayer human's prowess and knew this one was powerful, but it took more than just brute power to make mighty and proud warriors like those two follow him. Interesting. The woman stared at Cain for a moment before guiding the members of the Arctic clan to the right side of the chamber. Zamuel and Law assigned 2 members each from the Solis clan and Zangini's clan to guard the breath of Cosmos chamber entrances, while the rest of the group went to train. Those selected to guard were astral cultivators, as essence cultivators would solely focus on their cultivation. Cain had ascended to the chamber ceiling as he closed his eyes. He took control of the energy in his surroundings using his ego wave, and couldn't help but frown as he felt the immense density and weight of the essence astral air. His willpower was strong enough to raise a building from the ground, but it took all its power to send a single stream of the nebulous starry energy into his body. He immediately felt his body weighted down as he took control of the streams of nebulous starry fog coursing through his flesh and blood, filling it with vigor before coalescing into his evolution core. The Essence Star was constantly revolving with ferocious power as it eagerly devoured energy, and the fate of the stream of Essence Astral Air was no different. Despite its size being not much greater than an egg, the devouring power of the Essence Star was enough to drain an entire river in minutes, but the small stream of nebulous starry energy seemed like it would take a long time. Cain did not lose focus as he continued bringing streams of Essence Astral Air through his body and into his evolution core. It took nearly a day for him to fill the space inside his evolution core, and he felt his body weigh tons, but was able to maintain control thanks to his robust foundation. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 549, Meting Nocuo. Cain allowed his mind to rest for a few minutes. He would saturate his evolution car again once the quantity of essence astral air diminished, and in the meantime, he waved his hand, summoning a blood origin apple. The divine treasure, pulsating with vitality and blood essence, drew the attention of everyone, and none were more surprised than the people from the Zanginis clan. All of them recognized the blood origin apple and knew the only way Cain could access something so valuable was if the patriarch had handed it over to him. Cain didn't care about the looks of the others. He cultivated using the Void Crimson cultivation technique while inspecting the runes on the blood origin apple to improve his understanding of the law of blood. However, his eyes narrowed as he saw 3 cultivators from the Zanginis clan approaching. All 3 were essence cultivators, and their eyes glowed as they focused on the blood origin apple. They maintained a proper distance, but were clearly interested in the runes containing the mysteries of the law of blood. There was no downside to those observing the blood origin apple, so Cain raised it into the sky, allowing everyone from the Zanginis clan to observe it. Smiles appeared on Law and the rest of the people from the Zanginis clan as they saw Cain's magnanimous attitude. Hours became days as Cain kept his evolution car saturated with essence astral air, while at the same time coursing the starworm blood through his veins, pushing his cultivation forward and improving his understanding of the law of blood. As for the starworm essence inside his demonic devourer dimension, he decided to save it for later. After all, his evolution car was saturated, and the essence astral air was of much higher quality. Astral cultivators took turns keeping guard, but that was not a problem as they needed to rest after several days. Even if the essence astral air could be used to invigorate the body, it was still a very dense energy meant for the essence star and not something the flesh and blood could endure without a problem. On the 20th day, Cain's eyes widened as his entire body began to tremble. Suddenly, streams of blood materialized around his body. Everyone from the Solis clan to the Zanginis clan, and even those from the Arctic clan, focused on the young man as they saw the phenomenon, and understood it was a response to the law of blood rising toward the next level just as his energy pool did the same. Thanks to the incredibly powerful resources and the improvement of his law mastery over the law of blood to the extreme law fragmentation, Cain pushed his essence evolution path of power to the middle wave king, rank 3 months after his evolution. Zamuel, Law, and Amara focused on Cain and could not help but feel awe at the young man's talent. They could feel how pure Cain's energy pool was, and it was clear he had suppressed his cultivation to achieve the greatest foundation before advancing to the next level. Yet, he became a middle wave king before turning 20. Cain could not help but smile as he felt the strength coursing through his body and the booming might of his essence star. With my current power, I should be able to face the Draco lightning frog, even if this one was not wounded. Having the might to face a creature in the divine ranks, before becoming an apotheosis master, was a monstrous feat that maybe no one in Ether could have the honor of. Yet, Cain was confident he could at least force the beast to run away severely injured. Although the feeling of strength was intoxicating, Cain did not dwell too long on them as his eyes began to glow with red light, allowing him to regain focus. He concentrated on the blood origin apple and could not help but frown as he felt the help of this one diminished significantly now that his mastery over the law of blood reached the extreme law fragmentation. Since the treasure would not help him anymore, Cain no longer focused on it. Of course, he did not star it, as the rest of the essence evolution cultivators from the Zanginis clan were fully engrossed in it. Cain did not take any other treasure, and instead simply closed his eyes as the density of space around him grew stronger and stronger. He was delving deeper into the principles of the law of space engraved into the core teaching of the Crimson Void cultivation technique. Although the speed at which one could decipher the laws was slower without treasures such as the blood origin apple or the spatial rift grotto, cultivation techniques had insights from the people who engraved the method in order to guide those who practiced it. Cain remained in meditation until the 32nd day, when he finally opened his eyes. No breakthrough was coming, but his essence star began to develop a certain resistance to the essence astral air. Like with any drug, the effects of the essence astral air began to diminish after a prolonged period of use. Although Cain could still carry on forcing the essence star to devour the nebulous energy, that would not bring significant profits. In any case, he would only add pollution to his purified energy pool. As he opened his eyes, Cain noticed there were still some cultivators from the Zanginis clan and Solis clan using the essence astral air. Cain stawed the blood origin apple and descended to the ground as he gathered with the rest of the people guarding the gate. It was now his turn to wait for the rest of the cultivators to end their training. Enjoy exclusive chapters from Freewebnov. Luckily, Cain did not have to wait for long as 3 days after he finished his training. The last of the warriors from the Solis clan also could no longer take advantage of the essence astral air, and it seemed that the people of the Arctic clan were also about done. The people from the Arctic clan had kept their distance from Cain and the others, and neither side exchanged many pleasantries. There was not a bad affinity between the clans, but in a place full of treasure like this, it was better to travel apart unless you had a very good relationship with someone. The groups were about to go back through their respective channels when they saw how a new clan emerged from a path different from the use taken by the Arctic clan. Cain's eyes immediately grew cold as the group that arrived belonged to none other than the Kraken clan. Immediately, his gaze focused on Nakuo, as this was the person he wanted to kill. Since the old man had attempted against his life and had clearly developed a deep hatred against him, Cain would do all in his power to erase that cancer before it could affect him or the people he cared about. As one would expect, Nakuo was at the back of the group, and the rest of the members of the Kraken clan seemed to avoid him. Usually, the people who would enter the astral bloodline realm were members of the younger generation, using the chance to polish their foundation before consolidating their cultivation in order to push forward and reach the divine realm stage. Even Lord Zanginis knew the importance of the realm, so he did not send any of his sons, as they would have to be babysitted, and it would not be fair to the rest of the warriors. Yet Nakuo, an old man with 1 foot in the grave, managed to get a slot for the realm, which meant he took it from another member of the Kraken clan's younger generation. Since that was the case, it was no wonder that the rest of the people of the Kraken clan would treat him with coldness. However, while that was the case on the outside, Cain could not help but frown as he observed the Kraken clan. Not only did Nakuo not even glance at him, but even though the other members seemed to keep their distance and ignore the old man, Cain could notice the subtle sign of a battle formation that seemed to keep the old man as the Ka. There is something wrong, but what? Of course, since Cain detected something wrong, he would not simply wait and do nothing. Even if his senses and ego wave could not perceive it, that did not mean he was out of means as soon the pseudo-multidimensional scan force field covered the group. Although the realm restricted its range, the people of the Kraken clan were close enough, and none of them could detect the tool's power. Apex. Cain expected the absolute life form system to solve his doubts and asked Apex to go through the information, but unfortunately, he was out of luck. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates. Episode number 550, Ready to Kill. Sorry, brat, but the system did not detect anything odd with any of these people, even that Nakuo guy. According to his data, he is just an old man with 1 foot in the grave. When Cain heard that, the coldness in his eyes only grew stronger. The fact that the system did not detect anything wrong only told him that the problem was even greater than expected. If there was one thing Cain would never question, it would be his instincts, as they had saved his life countless times already. Whatever was happening, it managed to hide from even a force field with the detection power of a Titan. Cain was not the only one who reacted with coldness to the arrival of the Kraken clan. Zamuel and the rest of the people from the Solis clan did the same. Many of those present knew those who perished during the incident inside the Natural Inheritance, and they blamed the Kraken clan for the death of their friends. Law and those from the Zanginis clan did not say a word but remained vigilant, ready to act if anything were to happen. If a battle were to start, they would not simply stand by and would support Cain and the Solis clan. As for Amara and the women of the Arctic clan, they also adopted a solemn aura, but they were clearly not biased to any side. The relationship with the Kraken clan might not be good, but neither was so bad that they would attack them. The one who took the foremost position in the Kraken clan was a man with red hair and blue eyes, covered in a bronze exoskeleton that radiated immense pressure. His silver armor blended with his racial armament, making him seem like a fortress that no one could violate. At first, the man's eyes were empty, but soon they began to glow with a special light as he turned toward Amara.
It seems that Lady Amara has reached us before. Your destiny is in the uprising, and I am sure the elders of our clans will be happy to chat about our feats in this journey once we get out.
Cain could not help but focus on the man as he heard those words. There was a hidden meaning in them, since even if the Solis clan and Zangini's clan managed to kill them all, there would be witnesses, and the elders from the Kraken clan would figure things out eventually. Amara was very smart, so she also understood the hidden message in the words of the man from the Kraken clan. A cold light appeared in her eyes as she understood how the man used her and her sisters as witnesses, and a shield against the actions of the people of the Solis clan and Zangini's clan.
HMPH, I don't remember you being so cunning, Robert.
Amara sneered as she uttered those words before leaving with the rest of the Arctic clan. Of course, even if she left and did not intervene, she would still be a witness to the events that happened here. After the Arctic clan left, the atmosphere grew even more tense. The Zangini's clan and Solis clan clearly had more power than the Kraken clan, but in a fight to the death, no one knew what could happen, not to mention this was a dangerous realm, and traversing it wounded was not wise. Prepare yourself, we will attack. I will take responsibility for any repercussions once we leave the realm. Zamiel and Law's eyes widened as they heard Cain's voice in their minds and saw the eyes of the young man growing emotionless. They knew that Cain had certain problems with some people from the Kraken clan, but they were surprised to see the killing intent in this one's heart, since attacking now would make the entire clan hate him, not just a few people. The truth was that Cain's problem with the Kraken clan was not so significant as to go to this length. Nor was the threat that Nakuo generated, but something told him there was a problem with the old man and these people. Simple instincts would not have been enough to guide him in the past, but as a master of Oda, Cain was absolutely resolute with every action that emerged from his heart and soul. Since Cain felt that there was something wrong with Nakuo, he would use all his power to kill the man here and now and destroy anything and anyone who dared to stand in his path. Although Zamiel and Law were surprised, they looked at each other and nodded as they were ready to follow the young man's command. There was already bad blood, so why play nice and not repay the behavior of the Kraken clan inside the natural inheritance, especially if Cain was ready to take responsibility? Discover more content at FreeWebNote. However, just as the duo was about to take their weapons and guide the rest of the warriors from the Zangini's clan and Solis clan, Cain's voice echoed a second time inside their minds. Change of plan. We leave now. Zamiel and Law were confused by Cain's sudden change of mind, but he did not give them time to think as he shared that command with everybody else and guided the group back to the Grey Road. The people from the Kraken clan were surprised to see the people of the Zangini's clan and Solis clan, who seemed ready to fight 1 second ago, suddenly ran away. Only once Cain vanished did Nakuo raise his head, and there was a sky-blue light that seemed to radiate soul force. Cain frowned as he and the rest of the people of the Zangini's clan and Solis clan marched away from the breath of Cosmos Chamber. He noticed the look in Zamiel and Law, but did not say a word until they were far away from the place.
How is the relationship between the Kraken clan and the Umbra clan?
Zamiel's confusion only grew as he heard that question, but he still answered it.
Not particularly good. They had problems in the past, but nothing recently. I guess you could call it neutral.
Those words only deepened Cain's frown, and he sighed before looking at Zamiel and Law.
I detected a hidden presence near the tunnel entrance from which the Kraken clan arrived. I only perceived 2 people, but I doubt that was all. I am sure there were many more hiding.
When Zamiel and Law heard those words, they also frowned. Even if their ego waves were limited, their perception was not something anyone could easily hide from. Clearly, the only ones who had such skill were the members of the Umbra clan, adept in the use of darkness, shadows, and assassination techniques. The fact that they did not detect it, but Cain did, was also shocking, but the duo just took it as another of the young man's unique powers. Actually, the one that detected the hidden presence was not Cain, but the pseudo-multidimensional scan force field. As the moment the fight was about to begin, those presences moved forward and got in range. Although Samuel and Law believed in Kane's words, they couldn't help but grow confused, as it did not make sense that the Umbra clan would be secretly following the people from the Kraken clan. If they had wanted to attack Robert and the others, they would have done so before reaching the chamber. But there was even less reason for the Umbra clan to guard the Kraken clan.
Whatever their relationship might be, it is best to stay away.
Although the combined power of the Solis clan and the Zanginis clan did not fall inferior to that of the Kraken clan and Umbra clan, especially if Kane were to use the power of his dual cultivation, he felt there was something wrong and dangerous surrounding Nakuo. As for requesting the help of other clans, that was not an option, since there was no way someone would help them kill 20 members of 2 of the 10 great bloodlines just because he felt something was wrong. Kane couldn't help but sigh as he could not figure out the mystery behind the dangerous aura of the Kraken clan, and the fact he was too weak to force the truth out of them was annoying. Luckily, the power of Otta soon emerged from his willpower and helped his mind regain clarity and focus. The best path forward is to take advantage of the rest of the chambers and improve my power. Danger could appear anywhere, and there was no way to predict what type of enemy you could face, but your power would never fail you. With that thought in mind, Kane and the other warriors from the Solis clan and Zanginis clan returned to the main path and began moving forward, looking for another route that led them to a chamber. Thank you for listening to the Age of Chaos audio story. Pixie FM grows with listeners like you. Support the series by sharing it and join our Telegram for the latest updates.